Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And
okay,
again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, everyone, one and all, to a Wednesday night edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. My name is Keaton Weiss, here with Russell Dobular, of course.
Hola.
What's up, everybody? Hope everybody's doing well this evening. 8 o'clock, Wednesday, December 20th, 3:57 strong to start the evening here in the YouTube chat. 125 filing in over on Rumble. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button wherever you are. I hope I don't sound too nasally this evening. I am battling some sort of virus. It is not the big one, not the cool one, not the one
not
that
the
everyone's getting. No,
it doesn't have the coof.
It's not that one. No, my wife has to test for that because she works at a hospital and she's got whatever I've got as well. So not that, but nothing good, not good. Believe me, not good. It's kind of, I think it's the same thing that Russell had, actually. It's just that kind of thing seems to be going around.
That went on for like 10 days, man.
Yeah, this is going on a while.
Let me go.
Yeah. It's very needy virus.
Sorry, I was like, when Moses was in Egypt town, let my people go.
Yeah, so I got some cough drops. If you hear me sucking on anything, it's a cough drop so my voice doesn't go halfway through the show. And if I sound a little bit nasally,
it's not because I am watching those Tourette's TikTok videos.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's because I am. But thank you for being here. Thanks, Jake, for being in the booth with us tonight, Field and Rumble rants and member chat. So thank you guys all very much for being here. Russell, you said farewell formally to one of your past careers yesterday, correct?
I did. The second theater I ever owned, which was a 99-seater on 4th Street called The Crane, closed its doors forever. There's rumor a comedy club that's downstairs might take it over, but it won't be a theater anymore. That's going to be the end of the era, or it was the end of the era. So I was there for the first show. I wanted to be there for the last show. And it really showed you how much times had changed, because this was a legendary venue that's been there for 25 years. That's me on the stage afterwards with a beer. And if you had closed this place even 10 years ago, there would have been a line around the block to get in. This last show was a burlesque show. Didn't even sell out.
Wow.
It was like, well, there you go. That's why it's closing. It's, the whole thing is just completely died. On the next slide, I think we have me and my old partner, Erez, which this was a very, very nice gift. I absconded with that from a local movie theater back in Flushing that was closing, and I put that in the tech booth, and he kept it all these years and gave it to me as a going away present.
Oh, that's cool.
So that was really, really nice of him. And then that was not the end of the gifts. They made a set of wood coins of all the artistic directors, and I was the first artistic director. So that is me. And you might be saying, that's not you, Russ. Yes, it is. That was me back in those days.
All right, hold on. Let me take the slide off so people could see that. Yeah.
Yep, that was me.
Go.
For reals. So yeah, no, it was a sad thing. Also, something that was different was I knew they were having an after party. And it's what I've been saying. The people's animal spirits, I think, have just been neutered by technology. Because in my day, if we had been closing that theater forever, we would have had the kind of drunken bacchanalia that today, I guess you'd get 3 lawsuits if you threw a party like that.
Right.
Like we used to just do that every night after the Fringe. We'd be up on the stage getting wasted. You got a theater to yourself. You're in your fucking 20s and you can do whatever you want. And, these people were that age. It's the last night. And it was a very sedate affair. A couple beers and people went home, man. It's a different world. And I would argue that's part of why it's closing too. There's just not that. Theater is the most human of art forms, and it just feels to me like people are less human. They've been psychologically and emotionally neutered by technology. That's what I feel.
Well, especially in your artistic taste, right? Because now, there's no such thing as a captive audience anymore. Because when you're streaming a movie, you're not a captive audience. When you actually make it a night to go out and buy a ticket and go to the theater and find a seat, it takes a lot for you to walk out of the theater, even if you're not digging the movie that much. Now, I turn a movie on Netflix. If it doesn't grab me in a half hour, that's it. It's off.
That's it. You're done.
Off. Speaking of movies, because I'm so ill, I haven't gotten a chance to see Godzilla -1 yet. If I don't get to see it tomorrow, then Russell will do a review on Friday. I did see The Killer, the new David Fincher movie with Michael Fassbender the other night, because that's on Netflix.
I watched it. Yeah.
It's good. I dug it. Yeah,
it was good. It was a good addition to the genre of the lonely assassin.
Yeah, and it was the best of Fincher's sort of stylistic
the morally
flair.
Ambivalent hitman.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. It really was a good showcase for the best of what Fincher can do without a lot of the overindulgence that has, I think, marred a lot of his latest efforts. Like Zodiac was just an hour too long. I thought that was just ridiculously too long. It was too much. The last hour was the same scene over and over again. This had a lot of that style, but very condensely packed 2 hours, manageable, effective, and fun.
I have such a fetish for that period. That's probably why Zodiac didn't play as overly long to me.
Right, because you're into that shit. Right?
I'm so into that time period, and they captured that so well.
Right.
Yeah.
The last hour of that movie is just like Jake Gyllenhaal going from person to person, being like, "We have to keep trying." No, it's over. It's done. He does that. That same scene plays out 6 or 7 times toward the end. So, anyway,
yeah. For me, the production design was probably enough to keep me going.
It was very good in that. Well, yeah, Fincher that's his whole thing: attention to detail, art direction, cinematography, editing. He's a great technical artist for sure, and so I like this last one of his. But you saw Godzilla -1. Don't spoil the review, but 10-second take.
10-second take. Okay, it was a good, fun movie. They're kind of making it out like this is the Citizen Kane of Godzilla movies, and it very well might be. I mean, if you're talking about Godzilla movies specifically. But I feel like there is such an outpouring of affection and love for this movie because they just don't make fucking movies that would entertain or delight anybody anymore. It feels to me like a movie that if it had come out 20 years ago, people would have been like, yeah, that was good.
It was good.
Now
right?
they're like, oh my God, it's an actual movie.
Yeah,
wow.
We just become so used to Drek that now anything that's, acceptable is a masterpiece. Yeah.
There's a hero who has to go on a journey.
Right.
He has an emotional arc. Wow. I care about whether or not he defeats this monster. I've been given a reason to care. He's not just a cutout for some weird diversity ideology. He's an actual flesh and blood person, as are all the people around him. They all have distinct personalities. It's almost like the writers thought about how people actually behave and wrote them that way.
All right. Well, For those who watched the clipped version of our first segment, this is going to sound like an awkward segue, but speaking of Godzilla, news on the Donald Trump front. Trump is disqualified from the 2024 ballot, Colorado
I
Supreme
knew you were going to do
Court.
that. I would have put Godzilla on the sound drop.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Well, I just thought of it. I was not planning that, actually. That was just off the top of my head.
That's improv, baby.
Improv, that's correct. Trump disqualified from 2024 ballot, rules the Colorado Supreme Court. It's the first court to find that the disqualification clause of the 14th Amendment applies to Mr. Trump, in addition to affirming that he engaged in insurrection. Former President Donald J. Trump is ineligible to hold office again. The Colorado Supreme Court ruled on Tuesday, accepting the argument that the 14th Amendment disqualifies him in an explosive decision that could upend the 2024 election. In a lengthy ruling ordering the Colorado Secretary of State to exclude Mr. Trump from the state's Republican primary ballot, the justices reversed a Denver district judge's finding last month that Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which disqualifies people who have engaged in insurrection against the Constitution after having taken an oath to support it, from holding office, did not apply to the presidency. You know, there shouldn't be Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. These amendments shouldn't even have sections. It's ridiculous. It's very unfair in the first place.
I mean, Section 2, that's the whole ball game.
Section 2,
What do you need
14.2,
Section
that's the
3
whole ball
for?
game.
They
You don't
just
even
kept
need
going.
Section 3.
That's what these people do. They write sections you don't need.
They put in sections everywhere. It's like, who could keep track of all these sections? Now they're telling me there's a Section 3? I violated
section
Section
here,
3
there's
of
a
the
section
14th
there.
Amendment? Ooh, what are you
When
going
I
to
was
do?
in the White House, I used to trip over a Section 7 on my way to the bathroom.
Yeah, exactly. They affirmed the district judge's other key conclusions that Mr. Trump's actions before and on January 6, 2021 constituted engaging in insurrection, and that courts had the authority to enforce Section 3 against a person whom Congress had not specifically designated. A majority of the court holds that President Trump is disqualified from holding the office of president under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution. The court wrote in a 4-3 ruling, because he is disqualified, it would be a wrongful act under the election code for the Colorado Secretary of State to list him as a candidate on the presidential primary ballot. Quote, "We do not reach these conclusions lightly," the majority wrote. "We are mindful of the magnitude and weight of the questions now before us. We are likewise mindful of our solemn duty to apply the law without fear or favor and without being swayed by public reaction to the decisions that the law mandates we reach. Mr. Trump will appeal to the United States Supreme Court," his campaign said in a statement. Tuesday's ruling applies only to Colorado, but if the Supreme Court were to affirm it, he could be disqualified more broadly. The Colorado Supreme Court stayed its ruling until January 4th to allow time for Mr. Trump to appeal to the Supreme Court. If he does, the ruling could be stayed for longer while proceedings unfold. The Colorado Supreme Court is the first to find that the disqualification clause applies to Mr. Trump, an argument his opponents have been making across the country. Now look at this. Similar lawsuits in Minnesota and New Hampshire were dismissed on procedural grounds. A judge in Michigan ruled last month
Not
that
on
the
the
issue,
principle, though.
right, exactly, that the issue was political and not for him to decide. An appeals court affirmed the decision not to disqualify him. The plaintiffs there have appealed to the Michigan Supreme Court. Last slide. Tuesday's ruling is not only historic and justified, but is necessary to protect the future of democracy in our country. Noah Bookbinder, the president of Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, said in a
Harry
statement.
Potter franchise character.
Yeah, Noah Bookbinder sounds like a Harry Potter character. His organization represented the voters seeking to disqualify Mr. Trump. Mr. Trump's campaign denounced the ruling. Unsurprisingly, the all-Democrat appointed Colorado Supreme Court has ruled against President Trump, supporting a Soros-funded left-wing group's scheme to interfere in an election on behalf of crooked Joe Biden by removing President Trump's name from the ballot and eliminating the rights of Colorado voters to vote for the candidate of their choice. A campaign spokesman, Steve Chung, said, "Wow, he really has Trump's lingo down. I could have sworn that was Trump himself, but no, he has a good campaign press guy then." We have full confidence that the U.S. Supreme Court will quickly rule in our favor and finally put an end to these un-American lawsuits. Donald Trump spoke out about this himself at a rally in Iowa last night as this happened. This is very, very brief, but let's hear from the man himself.
It's no wonder.
That kind of went together.
Yeah, that went really. Yeah, that was right on cue. Exactly. Here's Donald Trump in Waterloo, Iowa.
It's no wonder crooked Joe Biden and the far-left lunatics are desperate to stop us by any means necessary. They are willing to violate the U.S. Constitution at levels never seen before in order to win this election. Joe Biden is a threat to democracy. It's a threat. They're weaponizing law enforcement for high-level election interference because we're beating them so badly in the polls.
Yeah. So this is the thing. They're doing this at a time when Donald Trump is leading in the polls, and if the election were actually held today, it's almost certain he would win. I mean, almost certain.
Yep.
And so this is obviously...
In a landslide.
Oh, yeah, in a landslide.
In a Reagan-esque landslide.
It's a huge move. It's a huge move, and I think it is an anti-democratic move because the amount of interpretation required to arrive at that ruling is so vast. First, you have to interpret January 6th as an insurrection, right? You have to get there. That's not an easy place for me to get, as I'm sure many of you guys already know. This segment could be an hour if we hashed out every point. Then you have to actually get to a point by saying Donald Trump consciously ordered an insurrection on his behalf as opposed to having led a rally that then turned into a riot at the Capitol. And like I said, we've done several segments on January 6th. We've talked about January 6th on this show, on Jimmy's show as well. We don't really want to litigate all of that right now. Then you have to get to a point, as every court has to get to a point, of what is in the interest of stability, right? Courts act with a certain prudence. That's part of what this Supreme Court has been criticized for, not acting with as much prudence, as much concern for the stability of the country. That was what the Dobbs ruling was all about, right? That's why Chief Justice Roberts, hardly a liberal, was pushing very hard to actually uphold Roe versus Wade rather than turn it over because of the instability that would bring. And you issue a ruling like this at a moment like this, when you are essentially acting now to disqualify the leading candidate for the highest office in the world, that takes you past the point of no return. It really does. Like, you are really risking a very unstable situation by doing this. And it's been Russell's opinion all along that the deep state, by hook or by crook, would not allow Donald Trump into the Oval Office. This was one of the tactics that we told you was on the table months back. As soon as this case came up, we said, keep an eye on this because this could be one of the big things that they try and do. It's very uncertain whether or not this decision will be upheld at the SCOTUS level. But for now, that is a big move. And I would argue quite the anti-democratic move. I just have to show you guys this because I think you'll laugh. The Lincoln Project, you know, those defenders of democracy. We're conservative, but democracy first. Trump is a threat to democracy. They tweeted this out with a crystal ball. Joe Biden wins Colorado. The defenders of democracy. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't assume that even so. All right, so I would take a victory lap, but I've got a goiter and a bunion and a torn rotator cuff, and the combination doesn't allow me. This is what I've been telling everybody, and I don't know why people who mostly, look, if they're watching us, and I see what you guys say in the chat, none of you have any faith in the system. Most of y'all are veterans of the Sanders campaigns, and the rest of you are completely anti-establishment MAGA folks. Why on earth would you give so much pushback to the idea that the deep state will not allow this guy to be president? I've been saying it for like a year now. No, Trump's going to win. Why would you think that? Why on earth do you think that? Look at all the other beliefs that you have, okay? Do they add up to the establishment allowing this person back in the White House? They got taken by surprise last time. That's not going to happen.
Meaning 2016, right.
2016, they got taken by surprise. They did not see it coming the day of the election. What? And New York Times had it 90% for Hillary?
98%. Yeah. No, the establishment propped up Trump because of how certain they were that he would lose and that Hillary would win. They saw a Trump nomination as the key to the Hillary presidency.
Right. The Pied Piper strategy.
Exactly.
Her campaign encouraged his nomination. They're not going to get tricked like that again. They will not let this guy be president. Remember what they did with Bernie? Yeah. Okay. So that's inside the Democratic Party. Our MAGA friends. You always run around talking about how much power the Democrats have in our institutions. So why the fuck do you think they're going to allow this guy to be president? He is not going to be allowed, one way or another, to re-enter the White House. So at that point, I don't believe Joe Biden can win. I think it's going to be whatever Republican winds up taking up the torch. And I still believe that's Ron DeSantis.
Russell still thinks it's Ron DeSantis.
Well, because think about it. I mean, my premise has always been predicated on that. Not that DeSantis would beat Trump with a GOP primary base in a fair election, that he's going to be the next man up after they take out Trump one way or the other. So who would it be? Not Vivek. Like, they like Vivek, but he's not as established. He doesn't have the kind of operation. They don't know him as well. He doesn't have executive experience. Haley is the candidate for the Nicole Wallace Lincoln Project Republicans. Clearly, there are not enough of those to overwhelm the MAGA voters, and the MAGA voters are certainly not going to go to her. You take Trump out of the equation, who wins? DeSantis.
It's a question of, do they take him out of the equation before those primaries are over? I think you could have a situation where
that could happen.
By the time he's off the table, if they are able to take him off the table, and that's a big question, which we'll get into in our next segment. If they are able to do that, at that point, it might fall. I don't know how you would do that. If after the primary's over, the nominee has to drop out, do they put the vice president up? That's probably not amenable to the establishment either, because they don't want a Trump person in there.
I believe
does the RNC vote and do it? Like, I don't even know how that works, to be honest with you.
They don't have the super delegates like the Democrats do. They do, because they floated it for a second before they realized that their own voters would probably do things to them that I'm not going to say here.
What I do
East
to you
Berlin
would be fucking disgusting, as
exactly.
Michael Cohen said on the phone.
Realizing their own voters would get medieval on their asses. They did, but they were floating it. There was a way for them to block the Trump nomination, I think. Like, it's not super delegates, but they have delegates. Like, they were talking about maneuvering to deny Trump
if you are denied
nomination
a majority
through party maneuvering.
If you're denied a majority, so if it, like now California is the next state talking about disqualifying him, now you say, well, he's not going to win California in the general. What does that matter? It matters because there's a lot of delegates in California because it's a high population state. So for primary purposes, if you take those delegates off the board for Trump, you could get him under 50%, not under the plurality, but under 50%. And just like in the Democratic Party, if you're under 50% of the delegate count at the convention, they can do a coup at the convention.
Right.
Maybe that's in the offing. Who knows?
Right.
All righty, let's take a few super chats here. Thanks, Jake, for letting us know. 272 in the Rumble chat. Please hit that like button, everybody. Hit that subscribe button. Abiding, thanks for the 99 cents. Appreciate that, my friend. Ruthless Criticism says Keaton's got a fever, and the only prescription is more cowbell. You know, I never actually had a fever. That's the thing. My kids had this. This came from my kids' school because I'm not a dink. This came from my kids' school. They never had a fever. They ran like a mild fever one night, and that was it. What's that?
You go out of necessity to Costco, not for cheap snacks.
Exactly. I go because I have to. I go because that's where you get the discount yogurt tubes. Nobody. Thanks for the 35, whatever those are. Appreciate that. Does Americans know their country went from being number one most admired country in the world to number one most hated country in the world? From Africa. Oh, well, pleasure to meet you from Africa. That's great. I love it. So now we got fans. I think we got viewers now just about every populated continent there is. I know we had Thailand. Actually, South Africa, we had some viewers. I was just looking at our demographics because we're going to add our fourth stream very soon, by the way. I don't want to step on that because we're going to do our Patreon plug later, but we're within single digits of crossing 500. So we are going to add a fourth stream. So we're trying to figure out the perfect time for it. And so I was looking into our analytics. Over the past 28 days, only 59% of our YouTube viewers were in the U.S. 59.
Is that true?
Yeah. And then like 8% were in Canada, 6% were in the UK, and everybody else was from all over the world. So got a global dissident community. That's what we love.
We have
but
the
thank
thing
you for
calling in from Antarctica the other day.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Godzilla Minus One is the best movie of this year. No BS, says Shina Billy. Thank you for that, Shina Billy.
I mean, I don't know about all that. It was a good Godzilla movie. All right, so when I was a child, we used to have in New York, and I guess in other ABC markets around the country, we had the 4:30 movie. And so, that was obviously aimed at kids. They'd get home from school, you'd watch the 4:30 movie. And they would do themed weeks. So Godzilla week, I always made sure to be home for every one of those. They would play Godzilla versus the Smog Monster, like all of these really, really cheesy Japanese, not American Godzilla movies. They were all Japanese back then. They hadn't made any like American ones back then. So I'm a fan, Is it better than those old ones? I mean, probably. It was weird. You know what it was like? You ever see Logan? See, Keaton doesn't give a shit about this, but
you're talking about the Wolverine thing?
The Wolverine thing.
Yeah, no.
Okay, the way basically they did, like, okay, we really want to make a kind of serious movie examining what things were like in post-war Japan, and we could get the funding for it if we put Godzilla in it. It kind of felt like that. That was one of the most interesting things about it, because I don't think I've ever seen anything. I mean, it must exist in Japanese cinema, but I've never seen anything that really represented what it was like in Tokyo after the war. And it just looks like a post-apocalyptic landscape. It's just people literally living in the rubble of their houses.
Right.
So that was very interesting. That definitely upped the game of that movie a lot.
All right, well, this is a sort of B segment to our first segment here. So it was announced last night that the Colorado Supreme Court removed Donald Trump from their primary ballots. And MSNBC, as you can imagine, was good times over at MSNBC. And who did they have to call to get their opinion? Well, they had to give Rachel Maddow a call. Rachel was off that night. She wasn't on. But how could they not go to Rachel Maddow to help break this news? So here's Rachel Maddow on the phone with MSNBC, giving her take on the developments. If you listen
closely, you can hear me and Jose in the background.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Outside our house.
To absorb this. I mean, we're all just trying to absorb this. I mean, listen, I think in the broad strokes, in terms of our democracy, there are very few magic wands. there are very few sort of magic spells that you cast that make a complex and difficult problem go away. It just doesn't happen very often in our political system, and I think that we shouldn't be under any illusions about the character and the partisan inclinations, among other things, of this current Supreme Court as it is constituted.
Oh,
that said,
I thought, it's funny. There are no magic wands, and I don't think we should be blind to the partisan nature of. I thought she was actually going to say for a second there the partisan nature of the ruling, of the decision to take him off the ballot. No, we shouldn't be blind to the partisan nature of the Supreme Court. Meaning, hey, what if the highest court in the country actually strikes this down? At that point, that would clear the path for Donald Trump to be on the ballot in all 50 states. But she says, no, don't forget. This is the Trump Supreme Court, and they might step in and block this.
Yeah. This is not a crazy thing for a democracy to do. This is something that was a hallmark of post-war Germany after World War II. This is something that happened to Jair Bolsonaro in Brazil quite recently. This is something that our own Congress did in 1868 after our own Civil War, specifically to preclude anybody from holding office in this country who had engaged in insurrection against this country. And
okay, the two examples that she just cited there. Well, the Jair Bolsonaro example has a little asterisk because he's barred from running for office until 2030. It's not a lifetime ban. And I don't even agree with that. But that's a temporary ban. Sort of a timeout, an insurrection timeout,
also,
because they had a thing in Brazil, too. They had their own January 6th type thing happen there. That's why they suspended Bolsonaro's ability to run for now, 6 more years?
And all roads lead to Nazi Germany. Because, this is... the aftermath of the Trump presidency is exactly like post-war Germany.
Or
That's a
post-Civil
really
War
apt
America.
comparison.
That's the other point.
Or post-Civil War America. It's just like that. It's just like that. For liberal wine moms, it may feel like that, but it's not like that.
Exactly. Look at the parallel she's drawing. She's saying, well, they did this in post-war Germany and in post-Civil War America.
Right.
So wasn't January 6th just as bad as the Civil War and the Holocaust?
Well, they talk about it that way. They've compared it to 9/11, which is just absolutely deranged.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is why I've pulled my arts article back out of the digital draw. That'll be coming out next week. Yeah, man. I mean, talking to artists the other night, it's all, we got to vote for Biden. You know, Trump is an existential threat. Yeah. In the end, the arc of the universe bends towards justice, and they're making good incremental change, and their hearts are in the right place. It's weird, man, because if you're watching this show, chances are people who think like that avoid you at this point, and you avoid them at this point. It's not very often I get to hear people who think that way anymore, because it really is a vanishing minority. But Rachel Maddow is their queen. She is the queen of their worldview, and that's their worldview. I had a guy saying to me, yeah, well, we don't have gay people being beheaded anymore. So when did we?
Meaning we. Yeah, in America. Right.
Did I miss that part? I mean, I like to think I'm pretty well informed about history.
You'd think if that were happening, it would have Barack Obama would have come out for gay marriage before 2013. You know,
you would
if that
think,
were really
to
happening.
Stop the beheadings.
Exactly.
Stop all those beheadings. What is going on with everyone talking about beheading gay people now? You got Margulies, and like, what are you even talking about? And it was funny. This was kind of like what I experienced when I was in San Francisco. Nobody, I mean, this is a room full of MSNBC libs, which is tragic, which is why I'm going to drop my arts article. That's tragic to have an arts community like that. But nobody really wanted to talk even about Palestine and Israel. Like, that didn't even, nobody, it was a very, you could tell that was a very uncomfortable subject. I was in San Francisco after 9/11, and it was the same thing, that nobody wanted to talk about the invasion of Afghanistan, because the same people who would be likely to protest the invasion of Afghanistan had the week before, or the year before, the month before, been marching around with signs about the Taliban's treatment of women. So it's what I call the Kirk versus the computer scenario. There were all these. It was a trope on Star Trek that Kirk would beat a computer by giving it contradictory logic commands, and it would wind up blowing up trying to reconcile them. That's what that is for the liberal mind. They do not know how to deal with the Israel thing, because the establishment clearly is for it, but then they're supposed to be against colonization, and so it was interesting to see them in the wild. Like, how do they handle that? They just don't talk about it.
Well, at that point, the whole Biden lesser evil argument kind of goes out the window too, right?
Right.
Not to say Trump is better, but in practice, they're equal.
Oh, when I said that, like, their heads were going to explode. I said, what's the difference for most people whether Trump or Biden is president?
Oh, yeah, you actually brought that up. Wow.
I said that. Well, because they kept saying, so are you for Trump? I was like, no, I'm post-duopoly, man. I'm not for either of them. Well, aren't things better under Biden? No.
What do you mean, aren't things better under Biden?
That's what they said. And I said at one point, I mean, I said what one guy said, he literally said to me, I said, well, if the Democrats are doing such a great job, why is Donald Trump winning? And God, I've been hearing this from Democrats forever. Bad messaging.
Well, this is the thing. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I almost forgot to mention this.
Let me just finish before you segue. I'll give it to you. And that guy goes, well, you know, those coal miners in Pennsylvania, they're going to. And I said, right. Okay, so when a Republican wins and you're running around asking why, I want you to look in a mirror, because people who speak like that have no right to ask why most people in the country don't want to vote for them. No working class person would say something like that. He goes, I'm working class. I'm like, what do you do? He's a fucking technical director. That's not working. For anyone who doesn't know, that's a person who runs the Techno Theater. It is not. That is not working class. But that explains everything. If that's your idea of working class, well, that's how you come out making fun of coal miners.
Yeah, and, underlying all of this is the fact that Trump is winning in the polls. And if the Trump presidency were as traumatic as Rachel Maddow says, as the Civil War or as the Nazi Holocaust, then why the fuck is he winning? Like, that's the question they just can't answer.
Well,
why is he winning? Why can't you just beat him? Like, why is this such a problem for you?
It's messaging.
That you have to resort to taking him off of the ballot now.
Right. Yeah, no, it's all, dude, I've been hearing this my whole life. The Democrats only win because they don't message well. It's that whole, I mean, I don't know if you were ever as libby as I was, but I remember that shit, like thinking like that. It's this, yeah, man, it's just, they're too, well, and this is where it gets very inherently condescending. The underlying assumption that the messaging is bad is that the average person is too stupid and the Democrats are too smart.
Well, of course, right.
The way that they speak is too intelligent and they need to know how to translate to the troglodytes that they're actually have it made with the Democrats.
Well, that's why they loved Bill Clinton so much, because he did both. He satisfied their sense of how smart they were while at the same time packaging those ideas in ways that actually won elections at the time.
Right. And they didn't have to feel guilty about him cutting welfare, because look at him at the fish fry with black people in the South.
Right.
Look, everyone's smiling. They love him. So, hey, why should I interrogate mass incarceration?
Exactly. So speaking of how much better things are under Joe Biden than Donald Trump, here's a quick little story. Folks, as some of you may have remembered, student loan debt repayments are starting up, but not for 40% of those who owe money back. So here is Politico. 40% of student loan borrowers missed payments in October. I love this story because they are going to have a hell of a time getting this money back from the students. About 40% of federal student loan borrowers missed their first monthly payment this fall as the unprecedented pandemic-era freeze on student debt expired, the Biden administration announced on Friday. The new data suggests that borrowers are experiencing a significantly higher level of delinquency and distress than they did before the pandemic, and the data confirms that millions of Americans are relying on a temporary safety net program that the Biden administration created to help borrowers who struggle to make payments. Some 22 million borrowers had a payment due at some point in October, but roughly 8.8 million of them, 40%, had failed to make their payment by the middle of November, according to the Education Department. That's a much higher rate of missing payments than the same stretch of time in the months leading up to the pandemic. About 26% of borrowers who owed a payment in October 2019 had failed to make their payment by middle of the following month, a senior department told Politico. Wow, that's a great number, too. That really says something, right? The only 1 in 4 were missing payments prior to the pandemic, and now almost half. The Education Department emphasized on Friday that a majority of borrowers successfully paid their first monthly payment. About 60% of borrowers, some 13.2 million people who owed a payment in October, made the payment by the middle of last month, said the department. While most borrowers have already made their first payment, others will need more time, James Caval, the Undersecretary of Education, said in a blog post explaining the new data on Friday. Some are confused or overwhelmed about their options. We want to make sure borrowers know that our top priority is to support student loan borrowers as they return to repayment. The new data shows for the first time that millions of borrowers are availing themselves of the flexibility that the Biden administration has offered borrowers, which officials have dubbed the on-ramp to repayment. This is the last thing I'll read here. As part of that policy, the Education Department will not report borrowers as delinquent to credit bureaus through the end of next September, though interest will continue to accrue on their debt. So you talk about a lesser evil argument for Democrats. We will jack up your interest but not report you to the crediting agencies, whereas the Republicans will jack up your interest and report you to the crediting agencies. Vote for us. Lesser evilism, baby. Incremental change. Way to go. I just love how that's the sort of perk that they're offering. Well, yeah, we're going to keep fucking you. Even if we forgive your repayments for the year, your interest is going to keep growing, but we won't report you. And as I said earlier, they're going to have a hell of a time getting this money back. Once you stop payments on a loan, it's very hard to restart them, especially since now, as we just mentioned in our last show, homelessness has peaked. Credit card debt has peaked. People don't have an extra $500, $600, $700 a month to give back to the predatory scumbags who sold them a bullshit loan 20 years ago. Like, they don't have it. They're not going to get this money back. Look at where we are in terms of inflation. Look at where we are in terms of housing costs. The median rent in this country is now over $2,000. The median, not the mean.
I know. I can't
the median. All right. So where are people going to come up with this money? Answer, they're not. They're not. Like, they're just going to have a very difficult time getting this money back, which I think is really funny and great.
Yeah, and I was also looking at an article the other day. The gains that people made during the pandemic are gone.
They're gone.
The savings, the debt they paid down, they ran it back up. They're right back where they were, only with a post-inflation price hike.
Right, they put it all back into the eggs
they need
and
to
milk.
live. They put it all back into eggs, milk, rent. That's amazing to me, because when you're talking about a median rent of $2,000, like you're starting to get into like shitty neighborhood New York rent. And I've been around the country enough to know how much money that is most places. How do people pay that? How are they going to pay that in most parts of the country? Most parts of the country just don't make enough. Like you're going back to the Okies working for the company store. They're turning everybody into that. It's a slow degradation of people's expectations. And that's what a lot of people are starting to say. A lot of people are saying this is a prolonged war against the majority of the population to get them to accept the idea that they should live with less. And a lot of people are saying, and it's something I'm going to dig into a little bit more. I'd like to interview Michael Schellenberger. He has some skepticism around a lot of the policies regarding climate change. A lot of people say they're deploying that to get people to accept less, right? To make it virtuous to consume less, with the ultimate aim being so that the people at the top can consume more. And if that's not the case, why the fuck they take private jets to go talk about the climate at Davos?
Of course.
Why are these people still consuming like that? So it does seem like a program, and this is what drives me crazy about the libs. It feels like people who are happily marching themselves towards their own extinction, and they just don't understand that. They just they think they can, if they eagerly support all the policies of the establishment, their position will be secure, not realizing they're being marched into these positions in order to wipe them out.
Of course, things are getting worse. I mean, you mentioned your friend at the theater, the internet. Well, aren't things better under Biden than under Trump? How?
Right.
More censorship, more inflation, more war. How? What is exactly better?
Well, and I said you can afford to only focus on culture war issues, and even on that level, you're if you're voting for the guy who wrote mass incarceration, you can't even say that you're fulfilling that by voting for Biden. Pelosi, I brought Pelosi. She should be in prison this year. I think she's up 50%.
Man, you must have made people's night.
Hey, they brought it up.
I
didn't. I was trying to be on my best behavior.
Okay.
But you know how long that lasts.
Yeah, exactly. Folks, we are very, very close to achieving our goal of 500 paid members. So you can help us out in that mission by going to patreon.com/do-dissidence and supporting this show. Paid members on Patreon, Substack, and Locals get their name up in lights here on the show credits. You also get call-in access to our Sunday evening post-show Q&As, as well as access to 2 supporter-exclusive live streams per month. And those happen over on Rumble. So we try our very best to make it worth your while for your support. And it is your support that is the backbone of this show. You can go to patreon.com/DoDissidents. DoDissidents.locals.com. If you're over on Rumble, the join button is right underneath the video screen. You can join right now over at Locals or DoDissidents.substack.com. Thank you guys all very much for your support. We are right around the 490 mark. I think we're at 493, so we can hit that 500 tonight, very possibly, if just 7 of you lovely people. We got over 1,000 in YouTube here, a few hundred of you guys over on Rumble. If just a couple handfuls of you guys sign up tonight, we will hit our 500 member goal, and that will afford us the ability to add a 4th weekly live stream. That's right. We will be on 4 times a week once we hit that 500 member goal. What we're probably going to do with that is we'll probably do a 4-stream week, first week of January, and then we'll have to stop during the week that Russell is on Jimmy's show, and then we will continue 4 streams per week after that. Russell's hosting the Jimmy Dore Show January 8th through the 15th. It's going to be a real struggle to do 3 shows that week, but we will. After mid-January, we'll be on 4 times a week, assuming we get those Tuesday 7 more members. What's that?
We're going Tuesday, Thursday during that time. So you're going to get to catch us 6 days a week because we'll be on Jimmy's show Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Right.
We'll be over here Tuesday and Thursday.
So we'll be doing 6 shows in a row that week.
Yeah.
Sunday night, Monday.
Possibly 2 weeks.
Possibly 2 weeks. We'll see if that run gets extended. So there will be some schedule adjustments. There will be some schedule adjustments too for the holidays. We're going to do a matinee show on Christmas Eve and a matinee show on New Year's Eve, which means we'll have to move the call-in Q&As to Wednesday for the next couple of weeks because we're going to be doing daytime shows on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. We haven't figured out exactly what time yet, but we will announce that for sure on Friday, where we will be on at 9 a.m. So those are our program notes. Like I said, if you could sign up, really helps us out. We are almost there. We should hit that goal any day now or any moment now. If just, like I said, if about 10 of you guys sign up right now, we will have hit that number. So thank you guys all very much for your continued support.
Hang on. Did anybody hear me tie climate change to student loans? Did anybody hear that? All right. So maybe you're an idiot. Because you made a connection that I never made. Maybe that was a neuron misfiring there.
Elizabeth Marshall, thanks for the $5. Agree with Russ Tech lately very troubled that combo tech MSM is a huge dumbing down of most everybody everywhere in the country. Thank you, Elizabeth. Derek,
I can see it. I can see it. I mean, that was just like sad going and like nobody's really partying. I mean, it makes sense. If you live in a world where you could get canceled for one wrong word, you don't want to get wasted around people.
Right.
Say something wrong, that's it. You're going to wake up canceled.
Thank you, Derek, for that super sticker. Appreciate that. Okay, Franklin Warsham, thanks for the $4.99. Deep State may ultimately block him, but this very silly ruling won't be the thing. We'll see. We'll see, Franklin. Amadeus, thanks for the $1. Appreciate that. And Amadeus added 5. I suspect that once AI takes over most screen media, theater will make a huge comeback, even if it is, especially the stage work, very different.
You know, it has occurred to me. I believe that humans we look a lot at the fact that we're apes. And yes, much of our behavior is ape-like. But a lot of our behavior is also insectoid. A lot of our behavior reminds me of bees, where the collective hive reacts to threats to its survival. And I could definitely see a counter reaction to this breakdown in personal connection, in this just violation of our entire biological inheritance. I could definitely see a counter reaction where people want to go and congregate and see things live and see things that are analog and not digital. I could see that happening. But we're on the downslope right now, definitely not the upslope.
Dave Morrison, show care, thanks for the $2. Jen, so you're going to get to talk about the proposed Paramount-Warner merger. I haven't heard about that. Maybe we'll do that sometime in the coming days.
I heard that. Like Warner has gotten so kicked in the teeth with its DC bombs, they may go bankrupt and need to sell.
Interesting. All right, let's move on here. We got a couple of New York stories now to do. So 2 New York stories in a row. Folks, this is a quick one, but a good one. Mayor Eric Adams of New York City was on Channel 11 New York News, and he was asked to sum up the year in one word by Danny Manarino, which, just a little trivia, my wife actually went to college with this guy here, who's now an anchor at Channel 11 News. But he's not the subject of the story. Eric Adams is, because he gives, I mean, this has to be top 10 political gaffes ever. Like, top 10 funniest gaffes you could possibly make as a politician. I just can't think of anything worse. Gaffe. It's a very Adams gaffe, but it's got to be one of the funniest ever. Like, I just can't think of how many. I can't think of 9 that are cringier than this. So let's take a look.
When you look at the totality of the year, if you had to describe it, and it's tough to do, in one word, what would that word be, and tell me why?
New York. This is a place where every day you wake up, you could experience everything from a plane crashing into our trade center to a person who's celebrating a new business that's open. This is a very, very complicated city, and that's why it's the greatest city on the globe.
Let's say that again. You can experience everything from a plane crashing into your trade center to the celebration, to the ribbon cutting of a new pizzeria. Start spreading the news. Oh my God!
You could get your Achilles tendon slashed getting off the train. Or
you could slip onto the subway tracks
at the opening of a 5-star Michelin restaurant.
It's where every day you wake up. This is a place where every day you wake up, you could experience everything from a plane crashing into our trade center to a person who's celebrating a new business that's open. This is a very, very complicated city, and that's why it's the greatest city on the globe.
That's why it's the greatest city on the globe. No, you should definitely put that in the travel brochures. Yeah. They should advertise that at the Hilton, the real big hotels. Hey, there's a chance, if you're lucky, a plane might crash through your window tomorrow morning.
They should have like a picture of 9/11 and then a picture of soup dumplings.
Yeah, right. I mean, what an idiot. What a fucking idiot. I mean, it just doesn't get cringier than that. I mean, how? What political gaffe is worse than that? How would you sum up 2023 in one word? New York. It's a great city where a plane can fly through your building.
How do you even
get there? There was no cue to talk about 9/11 there. There was no, every once in a while, like, there are certain, like, when we interview a guest, there's certain questions that I know not to ask, not because I'm afraid of the answer, but because I'm a little nervous about where they might take it, right? You give a certain cue, they could go a place that you're either not prepared to go because you didn't read up on it, or you just don't want to take it there because it'll get things sidetracked. So there are ways to kind of subtly, not manipulate the interview, but keep the interview on course, right?
Right, yeah.
And so it's not like Danny, the host there, invoked 9/11 in any way. He didn't say, he just said, hey, how about summing up the year in one word? New York, we're the greatest city on earth. You know why? Because every morning you wake up and a plane can fly into your office building at the World Trade Center.
A safe could fall on your head.
How fucking stupid you have to be to take it there, unprovoked and unprompted.
All right, so for anyone who is not familiar with New York and New York politics, I'm going to explain to you why this guy is mayor. New York is a fundamentally Lincoln Republican town, what we used to call Rockefeller Republicans.
Right.
It is fundamentally a Republican town. It is a Republican town that doesn't want you to discriminate against gay people and wants women to have abortion rights. Other than that, this town is Republican. So what you had was, with the wave of progressives that got into the state Senate and knocked out Cuomo, what were they called? He had that group of Democrats that would vote with Republicans.
The IDC.
Yeah, they had
there was
acronym.
some three-letter thing.
Basically, Cuomo had a thing going where he had a block of Democrats that would vote with Republicans to avoid gridlock and push things in the rightward direction that in the end he favored. And in that exuberance, the Democratic Party locally pushed up a lot of people who were progressive for New York. Not progressive for the Western world necessarily, but progressive for New York. And especially with the uptick in crime during the pandemic, it is very easy to manipulate New Yorkers by invoking the 70s and Fear City, as they call it, right? Well, if we don't get control of crime, we're going back to the 70s. We're going back to the 70s. We're going back to the 70s. So you had this fucking meathead, ex-cop, Adams.
And ex-Republican.
And ex-Republican. See, this is the thing. Post-Trump, this sums it up. Post-Trump, these basically Republicans in their heart, registered Democrats, could not vote for a Republican. They cannot. You're not going to see a Giuliani in New York again for a generation.
Right.
So they went for the next best thing. They went for a Democrat in name only. They wanted a Republican, but their virtue signaling would not allow them to vote for a Republican. So they found a way to vote for a Republican with a D next to his name. That is why Adams is the mayor of New York. He's what New Yorkers wanted. A guy like Giuliani and Bloomberg who's going to send out the cops to crack heads, and they can feel good about themselves because he's a Democrat.
Yeah, exactly. And that is how he came to be. It is a like Russell said, it's basically a Rockefeller Republican town.
Yes.
Rich people who want to be free to have, guiltless orgies, and keep most of their money.
Yep. It is the New York and LA, the home of the shit libs.
Exactly. Indeed. All right, folks, here's another New York story. This is from the streets. Alec Baldwin had a run-in with some ceasefire protesters the other night, and we have a couple different angles of how this went down. This was the main clip that went viral here. Here's Alec Baldwin when asked to condemn Israel by a ceasefire protester.
Guys and children. You've already got your mind made up. You've got a big question you got, right? Oh, yes. Guys and children. You've already got your mind made up. You've got a big question you got, right? Oh, I'm asking you a question. I'm in Hollywood. Is that your answer? Is that your answer? You ask stupid questions. Ask me a smart question. Do you condemn Israel?
I don't give a fuck about my question.
Yes.
I don't give a shit.
I don't give a shit. No, this guy is a rageaholic. I mean, he really is. He can't help himself. So
somebody get me a prop gun.
Yeah. So that question was, do you condemn Israel? And he says, well, why are you asking? You already have your mind made up, right? Because I'm in Hollywood. Why don't you ask me a smart question? Why don't you ask me a smart question? Now, Status Quo was also on the ground, as Jordan will be very, very proud to tell you that he's on the ground.
Their camera
very proud
guy,
to say that he's better than everybody who's not on the ground. So I just want to make sure we understand that Jordan goes on the ground, and that makes him a lot better than those of us who don't. Even though Russell does now from time to time.
I go on the ground. When Jordan walks into the largest synagogue in New York and screams at Rachel Maddow, then I'll be impressed.
Right.
Till then, I don't want to fucking hear it. No, his camera guy is very cool. His name's John. He gave me a card. He went to Ukraine, and he actually did a documentary during the war there, which Taibbi helped him to distribute. So I talked to him. I always run into him because he's at everything. Basically, everything I go to cover, Jordan's guy is always there. I don't know that he works for Jordan though. I think he's like a freelancer who sells or licenses his stuff to Jordan. I'm not clear about that though.
Not sure. But they had this on their live stream, and so they had an extended take of it from a different angle. So the guy asked him, do you condemn Israel? And his just gut reaction is to get in his face. Ask me a smart question. Ask me a smart question. But watch how this goes after things cool off a little bit.
Let him continue. Who talking to you? Shut up. You look out of here. You condemn Israel?
You condemn Israel.
You've already got your mind made up.
You've already got your mind made up. So it's the same confrontation from a different angle.
Can the media go? Who the fuck you think you is,
Yeah, look at the cop trying.
No, they're trying to break up. They're like, Jesus Christ.
You are literally under indictment for fucking manslaughter right now.
Yeah.
Fuck up. I would think confrontations on the street would be the last thing you'd want.
Yeah, why would you
while
want
you're
this?
being prosecuted for manslaughter?
All right, now here, watch this.
Nice to see you, man. But you killed somebody, you know that, right? Stop crying. Stop crying. I can't look because you're crying so much. Stop crying. No, but I want peace for Gaza.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. Do you condemn Israel? And then he says, watch. No, but I want peace for Gaza.
But you killed somebody, you know that, right?
Stop crying.
Stop crying. I can't look because you're crying so much. Stop crying. No, but I want peace for Gaza.
No, but I want peace for Gaza. Now, let me ask you, what would have been so hard about just saying that to the first guy when he asked you? He eventually answered the question, no, but I want peace for Gaza. Obviously, it's not a satisfactory answer. In my view, I would condemn Israel, but that's neither here nor there for the purposes of this conversation. Why is this guy's first instinct always to jump down someone's throat? He eventually answers the question. You could have avoided that whole thing if you would have just told that guy, no, but I want peace for Gaza. But no, he can't do that. This guy, look, I lived in New York for a while. I used to do walking tours in the neighborhood where he lived. I won't say where he lived, but I did tours in the neighborhood, and I saw him a lot, all over the place. I used to run into him a lot. And New Yorkers are pretty cool about celebrities in general, and we kind of know who is approachable and who is not. I never saw a single soul approach him on the street, and I probably ran into him 20, 30 times on the street. Never did a single soul approach him because they know what they're in for. If they approach him, they don't want a fucking episode like that. I mean, if you're a paparazzi, you do because you make money off of it if you film it.
Right.
But the average person who likes Alec Baldwin doesn't want to have a negative experience with Alec Baldwin because it kind of soils your, thoughts about a person. If you were a fan of his work or whatever, you don't want him to call you a fucking ass. Yeah, he headbutts you in the middle of Washington Square Park. That kind of, soils the impression, right? So people just knew to kind of, stay away and leave him alone. And so they did. But this is why, man. I mean, Jesus Christ. And as Russell said, you're under indictment for manslaughter. First, they pressed charges and they dropped them. Now I think they're back on. But you're in hot water for accidentally killing a person. Why? Why would your first reaction in a situation like that still be to jump down the guy's throat? Ask me this where a cop literally has to get between you and the guy.
Yeah. He is, Jimmy always says this about Lawrence O'Donnell. He's a fake tough guy. Alec Baldwin is the ultimate fake tough guy. The only reason that guy has never had his jaw broken is he's selective about who he pulls that shit on. You pull that fucking number on the wrong guy, Alec Baldwin or no, they're going to break his fucking face.
Oh, yeah.
That's bullies, man. They don't do that to people who are going to fucking wreck them. They only do it to guys like that guy. He's not.
And when the cop is between you,
and he's got a cop there. He's tough with his daughter. You ever hear that tape of him calling his daughter a pig?
Yeah.
He's a punk. He's a fake. That is the epitome of a fake tough guy, Alec Baldwin. So he walks around, he acts like that because he knows who not to do it to, people who are going to knock his teeth down his throat. He only does it to people he knows he can pull that shit with. And, he's just got an enormous narcissistic ego like a lot of actors. And, he gets away with it. So he keeps on doing it. But, unfortunately for the poor woman he killed and her family, his arrogance and his heedlessness wound up costing a life. And I would say that's kind of all of a piece. I'm not saying he was trying to kill that woman, but I think, a guy who just kind of does what he wants. It's not surprising that they'd wind up doing something like that.
I mean, when it comes to the case, I couldn't really comment. I mean, I'm, as people know, my first instinct is always not to lock someone in a cage. That seemed to me like an honest to God accident. I think that
I'm sure it was an accident, but it also sounds like he's a producer, and it sounds like that set was being run in a very cavalier way.
Well, that's what it is.
He's not the first or the last person to run a set that way.
That's what it is.
But hey, man, that goes to character.
Yeah, no, I mean, they had some 20-something, unqualified person, it seems like, or very, very inexperienced person handling the weapons on that set.
Right.
And that seems to be at least a large part of why that happened, absent any foul play, which they still have not really found any evidence of any foul play. It's still a mystery.
I don't think it's foul play. I think he's a fucking asshole who did not do his job as a producer. And just like he thinks he can get away with just threatening people on the street, he thought he could get away with cutting corners on his film set, and somebody died for it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's the thing. There definitely was a lot of, I would say,
a lot of
production decisions that should not have been made there. There was clearly cutting of major corners there.
Look, man, safety is always first. If you have anything like that going on, you make sure you get people who know what they're doing. If something's safe, you got to cut it. Like, you just can't do it. So, he didn't live up to that responsibility. When you're in that position, especially, Coppola said it very well. He said being a director is the last dictatorial post left in the Western world. If you're a producer, you're a director on a movie, you have a level of power over the people involved that you'd be hard-pressed to find anything outside of being a military commander that would give you that level of absolute I am God kind of authority. That gives you a tremendous amount of responsibility to watch out for the people who have invested that power in you. And he didn't do it.
Well, obviously. Yep.
Right.
No doubt about that. Okay, let's go on to some foreign policy news. Russell, you got this one. We were going to cover the killing of the Israeli hostages on Sunday's show, but we ran quite long on Sunday's show. But this is a related story. So, Russell, go ahead.
All right. So for the Israel-Gaza war, the Ukraine and Germany are calling for a sustainable ceasefire.
UK and Germany, not the Ukraine. What? I thought you said the Ukraine and Germany.
I might have.
Okay.
So the Foreign Secretary, David Cameron, has called for a, quote, sustainable ceasefire in the Gaza conflict, as he warned that too many civilians have been killed by Israel in spite of its right to eliminate the threat posed by Hamas. In a significant shift in tone by the UK government, Cameron, in a joint article with the German Foreign Affairs Minister Annalena Baerbock, wrote, "Our goal cannot simply be an end to fighting today. It must be peace lasting for days, years, generations. We therefore support a ceasefire, but only if it is sustainable." It's quite a word salad there. "We know many in the region and beyond have been calling for an immediate ceasefire. We recognize what motivates these heartfelt calls. It is an understandable reaction to such intense suffering, and we share the view that this conflict cannot drag on and on. That is why we supported the recent humanitarian pauses," unquote. It came after it emerged that 3 Israeli hostages killed by the IDF in Gaza were bare-chested and carrying a white flag when they were shot, according to an initial military investigation. Now, keep in mind, as my editorial note, if those had been Palestinians, you just never would have heard about it. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told a press conference late Saturday that they were as, quote, committed as ever to war. Shocker. He said they were determined to fight to the end, and Gaza quote, will be demilitarized and under Israeli security control following the defeat of Hamas, unquote. The killing of the 3 hostages who were kidnapped by Hamas on 7th October during its assault on southern Israel has triggered widespread anger and incredulity in Israel amid a mounting sense of anxiety over the safety of the remaining hostages in Gaza. According to reports of the IDF probe in the Israeli media, the 3 men, Yotam Haim, Samer El Talalka, and Alan Shamriz, all in their 20s, had somehow escaped their captors and were approaching an IDF position in the Shahaya area of Gaza City. I'm sure I butchered that, where there has been heavy fighting. Cameron and Baerbock write in an article published in the Sunday Times and Welt am Sonntag. So this is why he wanted me to do this.
Yeah, that's why I gave this to you.
In Germany.
So I can rest my voice and not mispronounce all these words.
Quote, Israel will not win this war if their operations destroy the prospect of peaceful coexistence with Palestinians. They have a right to eliminate the threat posed by Hamas, but too many civilians have been killed. Following Biden's comments last week that Israel was losing international support because of its, quote, indiscriminate bombing, U.S. officials have told Israel that its window for conducting major combat operations in Gaza is fast closing. And actually, we have Netanyahu's response.
Go home and get your fucking shine box.
Like they give a shit what he says. The reality is that the events of the past few days around the question of the hostages and on the diplomatic stage have cast a light on a key unresolved tension at the heart of Israel's war against Hamas over its war aims. How to dismantle the threat of Hamas in Gaza while securing the release of those captured. And while Israeli officials have tried to suggest it was the intense military pressure on Hamas that led to last month's ceasefire and hostage deal, the hostage deaths have led to mounting questions over that strategy. I think the best way to eliminate terrorism in Gaza is to create a lot of orphans who are going to grow up remembering what Israel did to their families. That's probably the best way to guarantee Israeli security. What they are ultimately trying to do, and what is painfully obvious, and what their own leaked white paper told us, they're trying to get rid of these people. They're trying to take Gaza. They're trying to create a greater Israel. They'd like to eliminate them from the West Bank. They are trying to create circumstances by which they can argue that the neighboring countries have to take refugees from Gaza for humanitarian reasons, and then they're just going to move settlers in there just like they do with the West Bank. This is a big part of why Israel is losing support in the international community. It's extremely obvious what their intentions are. And with shooting these hostages, that tells you how they're actually conducting this war. You never would have heard about this if these had been Palestinians. This tells you what they would do to Palestinians who are clearly not a threat, who are waving a white flag of surrender. They'd shoot them anyway. This just came to light because they shot their own hostages.
Right.
How many times a day do they do things like this to Palestinians that you never hear about?
Yeah, no, and you hear a lot of coverage in the media about the killing, the accidental killing of their own hostages, as if that's the gravest sin that they've committed since October 7th. Well, right? Like the accidental killing of their own hostages is more noteworthy in the eyes of a guy like Piers Morgan than the carpet bombing of a refugee camp, right? So that's one point. On the bigger point, the fact that the UK and Germany are coming out and calling for ceasefire now, that is pretty significant.
Germany
obviously.
Particularly, because Germany, for obvious reasons, won't say boo to Israel.
No, because they have a lot of guilt, not only about the Holocaust, but I assume they have some guilt about the fact that maybe the Palestinians had to give up their land for the crimes that Germany themselves committed. That's what Katie Halper was talking about. It's a lot of virtue signaling and a lot of bullshit. Right. And underneath a lot of virtue signaling is a lot of guilt, right? That's why we always say a lot of the privileged liberal politics is a way of guilt management. It's a way of guilt processing, right? You signal your virtue to cover up for the fact that ultimately where your real politics lie are somewhere quite different. Right. That's why you have Deborah Messing walking around with Douglas Murray now. That tweet came out.
I heard that. But I haven't had time to delve into it.
Yeah, exactly. Which is like I tweeted out. Yeah, the rich shit libs will always side with the right over the left when the chips are down, right? And so that's an example of Germany's
that's
politics.
what I saw that tweet, but I didn't. I was very busy today to get into the context.
Yeah. That was what that was in reference to. But that in the UK is just our bitch on foreign policy. I mean, they backed us in Iraq, so the fact that they and Germany are calling for a ceasefire now, that is significant. One more development against Israel on the world stage. This is why I say they are going to come out of this a pariah state. They are not going to get away with this. And I think this is the latest evidence of that.
As I said, we really want to support BDS. We will put together a segment about what companies best to boycott, and I've reached out to BDS. I'll follow up. So far, we haven't heard from anybody over there, but I'm sure they're quite busy right now. And hey, look, me and Keaton, between the two of us, we're only like 1.5 Jews. So we don't speak for all Jews, but speaking for ourselves, if the Rhine is still available, we'll take it.
What's that? Oh, yeah. Right, in Germany, yeah. All right, Egg64, thanks for the $2. Part of the proud 40% that ain't paying their loans. Thanks, Egg64. Appreciate that. Pete Sweet, thanks for the $5. Why keep a pristine credit rating if you're not going to qualify for a mortgage anyways or save enough for a down payment? American dream is gone. Thanks, Pete Sweet, for that donation. Appreciate that. NYC, come for the pizza, stay for the terrorism. Yeah, it's a good slogan. Yeah, run that by Eric Adams' office. Amadeus, thanks for the $5. Jimmy Carr, the fire chief of New York, said, "We will never forget 911. I should fucking hope not. It's your phone number." Yeah, very good. Thanks, Virtuoso, for the $4.99. Mayor Adams has the weirdest segue. New York is a great place from getting shot or in the back or Son of Sam to owning a business. Getting shot in the back by Son of Sam to owning a business. Yeah. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere, as they say. Keaton, get some rest. I am. I'll get some rest. Don't worry. Thank you, though. Good looking out. Appreciate you. Okay, and we got a Rumble rants that I missed from a while ago. Sorry, Sloppy Top 10. This Christmas, come on down to the Bailey Building and Loan, where you can live the American dream of having your home built for $5,000, $69K in 2023.
And you know what, Mr. Potter? You're nothing but a scurvy little spider.
Yeah, right. Indeed. All righty. Let's see here. Moving right along. Here's a story. Pope Francis condemns killing of 2 women sheltering at Gaza church. Pope Francis condemned the killing of 2 women sheltering at a church in the Gaza Strip, appealing on Sunday for an end to the war. A sniper from the IDF shot the women without warning and in cold blood Saturday, the Latin Patriarchate of Jerusalem. Did I say that right? An ecclesiastical office of the Latin Catholics in the region said in a statement earlier. The 2 were sheltered. Yeah, if you think I'm bad at pronouncing like Hebrew, wait till you get into this real, upper echelon Catholic shit. The 2 were sheltering at the Holy Family Parish, where the majority of Christian families in Gaza have taken refuge during the war, it said. Identifying the women as Nahida Khalil Anton and her daughter Samar Kamal Anton, Francis said that there were no terrorists at the Catholic parish and that it is hosting families, nuns, and those who are sick or have disabilities. Some are saying this is terrorism and war. Yes, it is war. It is terrorism, Francis said after a prayer with the pilgrims gathered at St. Peter's Square. So we have some video of this speech. Let's go now to the world's richest dink, Pope Francis.
Yeah, he gets all the snacks.
He gets all the snacks, that's right.
Continuo a ricevere da casa notizie molto gravi e dolorose. Civili inermi sono oggetto di bombardamenti e spari. E questo è avvenuto persino all'interno del complesso parrocchiale della Santa Famiglia, dove non ci sono terroristi, ma famiglie, bambini, persone malate con disabilità, suore. Una mamma e sua figlia, la signora Navda Khalil Anton e la figlia Samar Omar Anton sono state uccise e altre persone ferite dai tiratori scelti mentre andavano in bagno. È stata danneggiata la casa delle suore di Madre Teresa, colpito il loro generatore. Qualcuno dice è il terrorismo, è la guerra. Sì, è la guerra, è il terrorismo. Per questo la scrittura afferma che Dio fa cessare le guerre, rompe gli archi e spezza le lance. Preghiamo il Signore per la pace.
Let's pray for peace.
Now that's a language, man. I could listen to that. You know, it's so musical and lovely to listen to.
Oh, yeah, of course.
English sounds like the guttural German barbarian language it is.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's not the first time Francis has used the word terrorism in relation to the war in Gaza. At his general audience in St. Peter's Square on November 22nd, Francis said the conflict had gone beyond war. This is terrorism. That made headlines just about a month ago. And the Washington Post reported an undisclosed phone call between Francis and Israeli President Isaac Herzog in late October, in which the Pope says it is forbidden to respond to terror with terror amid growing global horror over the loss of civilian life in Gaza. At least 19,453 people have been killed, so that's the official death count now been updated as for the Washington Post since the war began, according to the Gaza Health Ministry, including thousands of children. I'm going to go back to that quote. So on a phone call between the Pope and President Herzog, the Pope said it is forbidden to respond to terror with terror. This is where having the second Catholic president in American history might come in handy if Joe Biden should heed the words of his spiritual leader there. There it is, straight from Francis's mouth. Said that to the president. Can't respond to terror with terror. So, pretty strong words for Israel from Pope Francis. One more moral authority. Whatever you think about the Catholic Church, he is a moral authority to millions and millions of people, obviously, turning against Israel.
Yeah, as popes go, he's certainly one of the better.
He's one of the more based popes.
He's one of the more based popes. Yes, he just allowed, and this is not a civil union or a marriage, but he just allowed the church to bless gay couples.
Yeah.
So he just changed. He is gradually, obviously, a church, a religion. A religion is predicated on the idea that it holds the eternal truths of God. So naturally, institutions like that are going to change very, very slowly because it's very difficult to say, God, he called me up. He told me it's okay. You can bless the gay. It's all okay. So they're going to change slowly, but he's definitely as much of a reformer pope as we've seen, certainly in my lifetime. John Paul II was very beloved, but he was pretty conservative. He was beloved for his anti-communism at that time.
Then they had the other guy. Who was the guy? He wasn't around long. The German guy. People hated him.
Yes. He was running the Vatican like a gay disco.
Yeah, I forget that guy's name.
They were running around with glow sticks in St. Peter's.
But here's some footage from a State Department briefing. Friend of the show, Ryan Grimm.
Benedict? Is that
Benedict? That's it. Benedict. That was it. Friend of the show, Ryan Grimm, whose new book, The Squad, AOC, and the Hope for a New Political Revolution. We know that's on all of your Christmas lists, everybody. So I know you're counting down the days to when you can open that. Don't cheat. Don't cheat. Don't open that stocking too soon. Wait for Christmas. We know you're dying to read the book. But here's Ryan Grimm asking Matthew Miller for the State Department's take on the Pope's condemnation of Israel.
Ryan, go ahead. Welcome back to the briefing room, twice in 2 weeks.
I know, it's good to be here. I have a Pakistan question, but first on Gaza. The Pope Francis said recently, he said, quote, unarmed civilians are subjected to bombings and shootings. And
good product placement there. Bring that counterpoints sticker on that laptop. Make sure you point that at the camera. Always get a plug in. Always get a plug.
He needs the job.
He needs a job. Yeah.
Subjected to bombings and shootings.
I mean, really, I'll be very curious. I got to take a look at that, how that book is selling, because the libs will never forgive the squad for expressing the slightest amount of independence ever in their careers, and we're not going to read that shit.
No.
So who's going to buy that?
Yeah, I don't know. Not sure. That's why he needs that counterpoints. You know,
That's
he's got to
why.
do that product
That's why.
placement.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Said, quote, unarmed civilians are subjected to bombings and shootings, and this even happened inside the parish complex of the Holy Family, where there are no terrorists but families, children, sick and disabled people, nuns. Someone says it's terrorism, it's war. Yes, it's war, it's terrorism, unquote. So first, is the Pope wrong about this, and is the U.S. concerned about its standing among the international community if the Pope is willing to describe what Israel is doing as terrorism?
So one of the things that we have made clear to Israel from the outset is that we do not want to see churches, mosques, schools, hospitals attacked.
Well, they've done all of that. So apparently you didn't make it that clear. Apparently you failed to make that clear. I know you said you were going to make that clear to them in private. Yeah, right. You said you were going to do that in private. All these disagreements will be voiced in private. That's what he said to Max Blumenthal when he confronted him about this very issue at the very, very start of this latest incarnation of the war. So apparently, I mean, I don't know how clear you've tried to make it, but you have not done a good job of that, obviously.
In the secretary's last trip, he had a very candid conversation with the Israeli government about the importance of protecting those civilian sites and ensuring that they are on deconfliction lists, so they are not targeted. I will say, with respect to this particular incident that you raised, we raised this directly with the Israeli government and asked tough questions about it, and we will continue to do so. I will say, with respect to the larger issue.
I thought you were going to say with respect to the Pope's comments, right? You were asked about the Pope. The Pope said that this is terrorism. Is he gonna address the Pope? I don't know. I sense that he's not going to. I sense he's going to duck that entirely.
I would say you've heard me, but you're not. As we noted, you're not always here. I have spoke to the issue from the podium before, that one of the things that we have heard from not just our allies who agree with us on approach to Israel, but from countries with which we have very clear disagreements, including those who are calling for an immediate ceasefire, something that we do not support, that they recognize the importance of United States engagement on this issue. They recognize the importance of United States diplomacy on this issue, and they recognize the important role that only the United States can play in, I will say, working with the government of Israel and other partners in the region, something that there really is, it's a role that cannot be replaced by any other country, and so we will continue to play that role.
Right. Now, I got that clip from Ryan Grimm's own feed. And so I'm sure they didn't just edit out the part of the response where the guy actually answers his question about the Pope. Notice a giant word salad there.
Oh,
no
yeah.
answer.
Answer at all. That was like the word salad Olympics. That was amazing, because he just keeps talking and talking and not saying a fucking thing.
And look, not to beat up on Ryan Grimm, but Max Blumenthal wouldn't have let him talk over him like that. He'd have interrupted him 3 or 4 times. I asked you a question about the Pope, who condemned these recent actions. What do you have to say about that? Because does the Biden administration want to get on the wrong side of the Pope? I don't think so. I think now they're going to start losing the Catholic vote. Then forget it. Then you're talking about a 49-state landslide. At that point, they lose Long Island.
Well, I mean, they already lost any Catholics who are traditional about abortion.
Right. Well, yeah, but a lot of Catholics vote Democrat anyway. A lot of Catholics look the other way on that.
Well, a lot of Democrats. I don't think I've ever known a Catholic who actually lived by that personally. They're Catholics. I know it's almost like Jews. It's more of a cultural tradition than a religious belief.
Right.
But of course, those would be the Catholics I would know, right?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, basically, this is their party line. We're sending some very sternly worded letters to the Israelis. We're telling them to cut it out, stop committing a genocide. No, that's bad. Don't. lay off the hospitals and the churches and the women and the children, basically stop everything that you're doing. And the next day it's the same shit. Now, they may very well be saying this. I believe that Biden has probably said, hey, you got to cool it because you're losing support internationally and I'm losing support at home. And I'm sure that's probably true. Netanyahu could give a shit what the fuck the United States said. Because unless you're going to say we're cutting off the money tomorrow, unless you do these things, why would he care? And we're not going to do that. So he's laughing. There's that footage. We've never pulled it for the show. It's from a few years ago where they literally have Netanyahu on camera saying basically what Paulie says about Karen and Goodfellas. Don't worry, I know how to talk to her, especially to her.
Right.
We're asking him about the United States. He's like, the United States. We can talk to them. Don't worry about them.
Yeah, no, look, if anything, for Netanyahu, the fact that this is tanking Biden's polling is a plus because Netanyahu probably wants Donald Trump back. You know, we did a piece of, a few weeks ago about how Israel actually did collude with the Trump campaign in 2016.
Right.
Like, they wanted Trump. Like, Netanyahu and Trump get along great. Right, so there's an added bonus. That's like a cherry on top. Hey, this will tank Biden and Trump will be back, next year. That's number one. Number two, they feel like, I'm talking about Biden, they feel like they could just filibuster and run out the clock here because unlike Ukraine, which could theoretically go on forever since you're talking about, two established powers with militaries. Not that Ukraine could defend itself without us, but as we've said, in the past year, the front lines have barely moved in the Ukraine war. So you could fight that to a stalemate and keep going and keep going and keep going. At a certain point, the political support will dry up before the war ends, right? That's why they're telling Zelensky, hey, it's kind of time to wind down. In this case, this war can't go on forever anyway. They can run out the clock here with just, we're telling them to be careful because eventually there's just not going to be a Gaza left. And by eventually, I don't mean a very, very long ways away. Right? I mean, it's a horrible thing to say. It's a horrible thing to think. But this war is not going to go on for another year. In 6 more months at this rate, there will be no Gaza. It can't. Right. So all Biden has to do
in the end, that's what they want.
Exactly. That's what they want. So all Biden has to do is basically stall. Yeah, we keep telling them, what, 20,000 dead? Okay, a few months, what would be 150,000 dead? Right? It's going to keep happening at an exponential rate because the civilians are crowded closer and closer. I mean, it's absolutely horrible. It's absolutely unthinkable.
Israel's entire history has been better to ask forgiveness than permission. They've just constantly encroached on Palestinian land, on Palestinian rights, expanded their settlements, pushed them further and further off their land. And it's been a long-term goal. If you go back and you look at some of the statements going all the way back to 1948, things that Ben Gurion was saying, Ben Gurion said, no, you know what, we shouldn't make a deal with the UN. Let's just wait them out. If we make a deal, they're going to extract a price. If we just wait, it's going to be better for us. That's what they've been doing for 75 years. They've just been trying to take over the entire territory, one step, one incursion, one settlement at a time, gradually, slowly, to absorb that entire area. That's their end game.
Indeed. Ruthless criticism. Thank you for the $5. Appreciate it. Alec, quick question. What's the best true New York experience, 9/11 or a Michelin star restaurant opening? Yes, thank you, Ruthless criticism. Tusker, I would also put doctors in an authoritarian position as well.
What do you mean?
Meaning they have power of the same power as a director or a producer on a film set.
You mean the absolute power?
Yeah. But doctors in America don't really have that much power because they have to argue with the insurance companies just like the patients do.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, look, these days, there's more accountability for directors. There are more avenues for crew and actors to call out abusive behavior. A lot of the directors of the past, the screamers, the yellers, would probably not be able to survive today's Hollywood, I would imagine. It's not quite as true as when, frankly, the way Coppola made Apocalypse Now would probably get you in trouble.
Yeah. Given the stories
it was in that
came out of
that documentary that he said that.
Yeah. What was that? Heart of Darkness.
Hearts of Darkness.
Hearts of Darkness. Yeah. Amadeus, thank you for the $5. If Germans felt bad about Nazism, they would have never supported Ukraine. Yeah. Good point. Joe Biden is as much a Catholic as he is Irish. What percentage is he Irish? I think Joe Biden. How Irish is Joe Biden? Is he half?
I think he's all Irish.
Is he all Irish? I think he's all Irish.
I'm pretty sure.
Tusker, he is the first pope from South America. Might have something to do with it. Yes, I think it does. I think it does.
Somebody mentioned after I did the accent he's from Argentina. Yeah, I know he's from Argentina. We have a saying in show business: never let the truth get in the way of the bit.
Meteor Dreams. Jimmy had on a racist comedian today. Disappointed. Yo, I watched the first part of that. I watched the first part of that. Yo, he was uncomfortable, and I would have been too. I probably would have just figured out a diplomatic way out of that conversation because it clearly went in the direct. I mean, Jimmy even said this isn't what I thought we were going to be talking about, and I mean, as far as I know, he kept him on for a long time. If I had a guess like that, I would just been like, after 15 minutes, I'd be like, all right, well, thanks for coming by today. We'll see you later.
Well, you know what? I wasn't clear why you got banned from the comedy club, but I'm glad you cleared that up.
Yeah, no.
I'm glad you made it quite obvious why you got banned from the club. Yeah, look, that you can't blame a host for that. That can happen. That's why we bring you fucking maniacs over to Rumble. We don't know what the fuck you guys.
Right, when we have our Q&A, right? We bring you over.
That's why that can happen. You don't know. You bring a guest on, they say something fucking batshit crazy. Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
It happens.
What are you gonna do? That's show business.
We're fortunate. Well, we don't do guests every show like that, where you're going to start to get guests that are not as known a quantity. Like you bring on Glenn Greenwald, he's not going to say some shit like that.
Right.
One would think. Maybe next time.
Yeah, maybe next time. Maybe next time he'll let it fly now that he knows us. All right, folks. We got a few more super chats. 1,610 strong in the YouTube chat. Thank you guys very much for all being here. Please hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. I saw we had 2 more people sign up at Patreon. That brings us to, I think, 495. So that's beautiful. Heather is one of them. Heather Johnson just signed up on Patreon. Love your stuff. Thank you, Heather. Appreciate that very much. It's very kind of you. So we are at now 27,910 subscribers on YouTube. That's wonderful. Hit that follow button over on Rumble. And thank you guys all for your support.
Some people have taken the comedian side. I didn't see it. Keaton saw it. I mean, I don't know what happened there.
Yeah,
they're saying his agent dropped him for being white. That's what he says. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm not gonna litigate that here.
And unfortunately, I very much doubt there's going to be a clip for me to check it out on later. So
yeah, we'll see. We will see. But I see some people. Are you seriously blaming the comic for being upset that his agent dropped him for being white? That's the question.
That's like the 4th time you're dropping the same all caps comment one more time, and guess where you're going? To the land of winning ghosts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, look, I mean, he could be upset if he wants to be upset. When you get invited onto a huge show with a huge platform, I think there's certain things that, you should probably pregame a little bit. And some of the stuff he said was just pretty extreme. And I don't think I'm alone in thinking that. So that's my answer. But if I wanted to litigate that, I'd have the guy on our show, and I'm not going to. So there you go. Mr. Perfect is perfect, so you can't make jokes apparently on your comment section. I got yelled at by a snowflake in your comment section. Hey, we don't control the comment section, my friend.
Yeah,
thank you for the $5.
These are not cutouts, man. These are just fucking. Oh, please do.
We don't police the comment section.
All right. Well, hang on. You gotta be careful with this because it moves fast.
Yeah, be careful. Be careful.
Nah, I got the right person.
All
Bye.
Right.
Oh, hang on. Did I? Oh, fuck.
See, you banned the wrong person.
God damn it.
You got the right person.
Oh, did I? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. I just didn't update it first.
No, I thought you
No, I was
banned the
very
wrong
careful.
person. It's like Alec
Yeah.
Baldwin with a prop gun over here.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
All right. Amadeus, thanks for the $5. Israel has been destroyed 4 times historically. Each time they had no friends amongst their neighbors.
Are you talking about in Fiddler?
All right.
Are you pulling a Bill Maher on us? It wasn't so nice anyway. That's exactly how the pogroms went. That's exactly how the Jews took the pogroms. It wasn't so nice. They just took it in stride. Not like millions came to New York.
John M. in Minnesota, thanks for the $5. R.E. the Middle East generally. In your opinion, which statement is more true? Israel acts at the behest of the U.S. government, or the U.S. acts at the behest of Israel? Well, it's both. I mean, we've made this point in the past. RFK says they're our aircraft carrier, which gives us some power over them because they need us in order to fund what they do. But it also gives them a lot of power over us because they are our strong man in the region. And so it works both ways. And in this sense, Netanyahu is certainly acting like he has the cards, right? Because he's just basically told the United States to go fuck itself every time they told him to show some restraint. And he knows he can do that. He knows he can do that because he knows that we have to back him no matter what. And so it kind of works both ways. In this sense, though, it certainly seems like Netanyahu has more power. He's certainly acting like it. You have Joe Biden going out there making these sad bastard statements. Yeah, we don't like to see civilians attacked. And Netanyahu just keeps doing it. That's it.
Can you maybe not bomb so many hospitals this week? Because it's getting really hard for my re-election prospects.
Exactly. Alrighty. Let's go on here to segments number 7 of the night. All right. So we've said this in the past, folks. We've seen a lot of like Mark Regev come on American and Western TV broadcasts and give what we feel are quite repellent excuses.
He was on The Voice last week. He's got a lovely
getting out
singing
there.
style.
Yeah. We've seen him give some quite repellent justifications for the various war crimes that are being committed by Israel in Gaza now. But one of the things I've said is that as bad as guys like that sound, Israel is sending the milder, more milquetoast war criminals to American and Western airwaves, right, to sort of give us the watered-down dope. You look at Israeli television, this is what you'll see.
פשע מלחמה זה אני, אתה רגל על הגב. פשע מלחמה זה אני. אני מודה, אני אגיד את זה פה, לא אכפת לי שירדו עליי, אוספים פה חומרים. אני לא נרדם טוב בלי שאני רואה בתים קורסים בעזה. מה אני אעשה? עוד בתים, עוד מגדלים, שלא יהיה להם לאן לחזור. אגב, בתקופת התנ"ך גם היו זורים את האדמה במלח. הם צריכים לזכור עם עמלק. הם צריכים לזכור את זה להרבה מאוד זמן. אי אפשר להגיע לאיזה הסדר מיד. סליחה, זה רק אני. זה פשע מלחמה.
Wow.
So he's suggesting a salt the earth policy.
Yeah.
That is what he's advocating. This is what they're watching on TV in Israel. And
I am
I'm
unable
assuming you
to
don't get
sleep
canceled
if
for
I
these
do not see houses being destroyed in Gaza. What do I say? More houses, more buildings. I want to see more of them destroyed. I want them to be nothing. I want there to be nothing for them to return to. That's the key. That's the key.
Is this that redoubt of Western civilization in the Middle East we keep hearing so much about? Are those vaunted Western values that they keep telling us we have to defend Israel for?
This bastion of liberal democracy in the region. Wow. I want there to be nothing for them to return to. That's the key sentence. They're willing to kill as many Palestinians as they have to in order to accomplish the goal, but that's the goal, right? The goal is not to kill as many Palestinians as they can. The goal is to clear the place out and claim the land. And as many people happen to be in the way, as many bodies as they have to pile up, they're willing to do that, right? So I'm not trying to soften it. But that's the land. I want there to be nothing for them to return to, so that when this is over, the survivors don't even bother going back. Because why would you? How could you? Not just why would you? It's impossible. Look at northern Gaza right now. You're telling me, oh yeah, when this is all over, okay, fine, safe to be there.
Yep.
What's there?
We're opening
no schools there, no mosques there, no refugee camps there. The apartment buildings are leveled. There's nothing there. There's a giant crater where neighborhoods used to be with, as Ian Bremmer tweeted out, an Israeli flag planted right in the middle of it. Yep. That's what they want. And that's what they say that's what they want. That's Israeli TV. That's the straight dope. Mark Regev, the guys we see, that's child's play. That's mild. They send him out
that's
there.
That's what they tell us.
Right. Go give the nice propaganda to the dumb Americans. This is what they sound like on their airwaves.
We should mention that was one of our viewers who sent that.
Yes, one of our viewers tipped us off to that. So thank you for emailing us that.
Yeah, that's incredible. We should start a game if we can get more clips like this. Who said it? An Israeli TV host or Genghis Khan?
Yeah, right. That would be something. That would be something. You know, to his credit, Chris Hayes actually featured that clip on his show the other night. Yeah.
What kind of a sick society could a show like this air? And the vibe that you get watching it, this is very Morning Joe. There's like some kind of an Israeli Morning Joe kind of a deal where it's kind of jokey and informal, and they're talking about having a salt the earth genocidal policy against the Palestinians, and it's got that very jokey, light tone. I cannot go to sleep without seeing. Wow. How sick does your culture have to be to generate a TV show like that people would think is normal? And it's the same reason these people aren't fucking funny, man. It's the same reason that Rappaport thing sucks. People who could watch this and not be outraged are not people who can do any kind of comedy, because, as you said, you have to have some self-awareness to do comedy. And if you had the slightest bit of self-awareness, you would understand if you're producing this kind of a news program, like a light news program, you're not the good guys.
No, it's just unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. So much so that when our viewers sent us that, and this is not a reflection on you, it ended up being right, but when I clicked on the Instagram post, because this video was embedded in an Instagram post, there were some people being like, well, the translation is fake. That's not really what they're saying. One guy posted that in the feed. And then you saw about 300 replies to that post because people were curious. All right, well, if the translation's wrong, do you want to translate it for us? No answer. Right? Nothing. Which led me to believe the translation is not wrong. Middle East Eye is pretty reputable. But then we've seen that clip shared on the mainstream outlets. Chris Hayes put that up.
Right,
there was another fairly mainstream TV or online news show that put that up. You know, that made me feel, okay, well, this is obviously not an inaccurate translation. I had no reason to believe it in the first place, but you never know. When you post something like that, you want to be really sure, especially if it's in a foreign language and it's that extreme. Because this is so extreme to the point where, like, okay, yeah, that's extreme enough to the point where if someone wanted to do a fake of look how horrible these people are, that's what they would do. And so you have to take the extra step to make sure you didn't fall for one of those things. But no, that's it. Apparently, that's real.
Well, that's
unbelievable.
That's like the James Zogby tweet I pulled for the next segment, because I was like, that's almost too perfect. Is that real?
Right.
And so I had to backtrack it, but no, that's real.
You always have to double check when something seems like too crazy to be true, even if you think it is. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, let's take a couple super chats, and then we got one more segment to do on the evening. I meant historically, and Bill Maher is a see you next Tuesday. Thank you for that, Amadeus. And Jezzy had a super chat too, but where the hell is it? We had
Jezzy.
Jezzy had a super chat that was starred, and then for some reason, why did that get... What happened here? Did we lose a couple of these super chats?
I banned the right guy, man. I didn't touch no super chats.
No. I know you didn't touch it. I'm just trying to go back because I don't want to miss Jezzy's super chat. That wouldn't be nice since she's such a loyal viewer.
She is. She always shares our stuff on X.
Always shares our... Oh, I'm sorry. It was Kinky, not Jezzy. I apologize. Kinky. Kinky, you're great too. No, Jimmy was great today. Really great art repels. Never forget. No, I'm not saying he was bad. He said, I didn't know this is what we were going to be talking about. And he was clearly a little uncomfortable. I don't blame him. I'm not saying he was bad.
We're getting this is getting very Rashomon. Everybody has a different point of view who saw this interview.
Yeah. Maybe we'll get to see it again. Maybe we won't. Who knows? No racist on Jimmy today. Jimmy says overrepresented in prison. I say lack of diversity in criminal community. Thank you. George Gunnell. It's a banner day for mouth sounds. What does that mean? What was that in reference to?
Maybe you're sucking candy.
Oh, maybe. That's it. Can you hear me sucking on it?
A little bit.
All right, now it's done. Now it's over. And the show's almost over, so I think we can probably get through the rest of it. Yep. Okay. Let's go to our final segment of the evening, and then we'll read a few more Super Chats or Rumble Rants, and then we will call it an evening. This was something that came across my radar, but it was obviously on Russell's as well, so Russell will take this away.
Yeah, I'm going into full Atticus Finch mode here. I like to interrogate this. Okay, so let me qualify. I could definitely do a whole hour reaction video to this, but I wasn't going to torture you all with that, or Keaton, more to the point, really.
I wanted to do the segment. I mean, that would have been extreme, but yeah.
I know, but I would literally sit there and just do an hour-long reaction video to this. All right, so here's a couple of caveats, because I'm not going to get into everything I could have gotten into here. Just broadly, I want to say I respect the fact that Barry Weiss, in her DEI video, that's what we're going to cover, I respect the fact that she presented an argument and laid it out and made her point of view clear and basically adhered to the rules of debate as I understand them. That having been said, she completely obscures the fact that she has her own history of trying to cancel people. Arab professors at Columbia very infamously, and if you want to read more about that, Glenn Greenwald did some great articles exposing that history. And hey, if you want to take responsibility and say I was wrong, okay, I believe in that. She's never done that as far as I know. So she spends a lot of time here. I didn't clip that part, but she talks about how much she's against cancel culture, and she does that in a sneaky way too, which I'll get into. But that's not true. She has a history of trying to cancel people, and actually the way that she explains her fighting against cancel culture, she names all the people she stood up for who took viewpoints that she agreed with who got canceled. That's really not standing up against cancel culture. Standing up against cancel culture is standing up for people who say things that you hate. So you would think if she had more of that, she'd present some examples. But it's a very interesting monologue, and I felt like it was worth really diving into for our audience, because I want to dismantle some of these arguments and some of what she's doing here, because you have people like myself, and I think like a lot of our audience, who share the skepticism that she's expressing here about DEI programs and the theories that underlie those programs. And you've probably noticed that a lot of people with that point of view are making very dishonest connections between that and supporting Palestine, and trying to define being against genocide as a woke position. And we cannot let them get away with that. So I'm gonna go through what she says, and I'm going to explain why she's wrong, where she's right in terms of DEI as far as I see it, but where she's making a very dishonest connection, and I think trying to force people who do agree with her on DEI to make that connection themselves, and thereby feel compelled to take up the cause of Israel. You have anything to add there, Kay?
No, let's go to the video.
Let's go to the tape.
Embrace a commitment to free expression, even we embrace a commitment to free expression.
Okay, so as most of you know, this is the president of Harvard that they just decided not to fire from her congressional hearing last week.
We embrace a commitment to free expression, even of views that are objectionable, offensive, hateful.
That's interesting, because just last year, Harvard told students in a mandatory Title IX training that using the wrong pronouns for a person constitutes abuse. I'll go on. It said that any words used to lower a person's self-worth are, quote, verbal abuse, and that, quote, sizeism and fat phobia contribute to an environment that perpetuates violence. Liz McGill didn't lose her job.
Okay. All right. So there is more to that. She goes university by university to get into different incidents where they did not support free speech. She goes through Harvard, MIT, and Penn for the university presidents that testified there. She's right. She is right about that. These universities certainly have not defended free speech when it has come to the rather niche culture issues that have been pushed by elite institutions, beginning in the universities and spreading into other elite institutions like museums, like the media, as she says, as she points out. The part of this that she doesn't seem to get is that Jews and the colonial project of Israel, not supporting that is not a contradiction of those values. It's completely conforms to those values. And it seems like people like Weiss want to have it both ways. They argue both sides of that. On the one hand, they'll argue that Jews should be a protected class. And on the other hand, they'll argue, well, this is all woke nonsense and there shouldn't be protected classes. They pick their argument based on what they feel is going to be most advantageous to them. Do you want to add something, Kate?
No, we can keep going.
All right.
Because she was canceled.
All right. So before this, Liz
McGill didn't lose her job because.
All right. So she spends some time explaining how she's the last person to support cancel culture, which, as I said, she has a history of trying to cancel people. Glenn wrote a first article laying that out, and she did a tweet storm that basically lied about that history so that Glenn followed up to knock down all of the lies in her explanations. So that's something that, as I say, as far as I know, she's never actually come clean about or reckoned with. And she uses examples, again, of professors who got canceled for saying there's two sexes, all points of view that she vehemently agrees with. So that's not really much of a statement on your support of free speech to stand up for free speech that you agree with. So here she tries to address the question of whether these people who are supposed free speech advocates are now turning on free speech when it comes to Israel by wanting these professors removed from their jobs.
Job because she was canceled. She lost her because she was canceled. She lost her job. Liz McGill didn't lose her job because she was canceled. She lost her job because she revealed in front of the entire country that she wasn't up to the task of running one of the most important universities in the world. Think about it this way. If the quarterback on a football team blows a key game in the playoffs, does the coach have an obligation to keep him on the field?
Okay, so that's a really specious argument. Who decides that? Who decides that this person is not properly doing their job by adopting a point of view on freedom of speech that you don't like? Because it seems like that is exactly what you say you're against. People who get removed from their positions by saying there are only two sexes, the people who remove them would make the same argument. that it's not a freedom of speech issue, is that they're not doing their job well based on the edicts and beliefs of the university. Once you go down this road, you have to go down it all the way. You're either for free speech or you're not.
Yeah, I mean, this is where I'll chime in a second. I mean, generally, she's making the mistake that, quite frankly, most committed Zionists make on a daily basis when they argue this topic, which is they just assume that their point of view is objective truth, right? So
Yes.
they don't understand the subjectivity in what they're saying.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, clearly, these university presidents are not doing a good job because they're not Zionists.
Right, because they're not enforcing the ideology of Zionism, right?
And in keeping
it's incompetence not to enforce it, not to enforce Zionism. That speaks to your competence as an executive or as an administrator. That does not. That is separate from your political ideology. Well, no, obviously Zionism is a political ideology. So if you're going to be tolerant of all ideologies, as you just said a minute ago that you want it to be, then you can't insist that the presidents of these schools enforce conformity on a political issue. They don't see Zionism as a political issue. They just see it as a given, a God-given fact, right? That Israel is in the right, always, every single time, no questions asked. And it's because you're incompetent. It's because you lack the ability to preside over an esteemed institution if you don't agree with that. She's making it a matter of competence, not a matter of opinion and ideology.
Right. And this is a way of trying to get around the obvious hypocrisy in wanting these university presidents fired. No, it's not cancel culture. It's for poor performance in your job because you don't support Zionism. And I didn't clip this, but I just want to point out, I will give her credit for this. A lot of these Zionists, now that they see that people are debating the meaning of from the river to the sea, will try to, point out either what the craziest person in a crowd said, like gas the Jews in Australia, or they'll make up, in my opinion, make up stuff. I mentioned on another show, there was an article where they very uncritically repeated a witness saying that they were walking through the university yelling, no more Jews in Palestine. It will be all for Arabs. Yeah, that's very catchy. I'm sure that's what a big crowd of people was chanting as they walked through the university. No, she showed a clip of them chanting Intifada, Intifada. So she honestly presented what she believes and what this is predicated on, that is by definition a call for the Holocaust of the Jews. By definition. If you're calling for an uprising against Israel, it's anti-Semitic by definition. Anything else?
Nope. Let's keep playing.
Ideology is obviously dangerous to Jews.
Okay, so just to set this up.
This ideology is obvious.
All right, so she gets into what DEI is, and it's understanding of society as victims and oppressors and powerful and powerless, and people who have power because the system itself is viewed as white supremacist and corrupt. If you have power and success within that system, that's automatically suspect. And that is a point of view that I do agree with. Her analysis of DEI and DEI programs and the damage that they've done to academia and to many other institutions, I do not disagree with. That is why I think it's so important not to make Zionism a part of that. I think that's a very dishonest tactic to take a good argument and pair it with your personal political project. So here she gets into some of the ramifications of some of the thinking behind DEI for different groups.
This ideology is obviously dangerous to Jews because in this new worldview, where fairness is measured by equality of outcome rather than equality of opportunity, who do you think that singles out? If underrepresentation is the inevitable outcome of systemic bias, then overrepresentation, and Jews are just 2% of the American population, suggests not talent or hard work, but unearned privilege. This conspiratorial conclusion is actually very, very close to the hateful portrait of a small group of Jews divvying up the ill-gotten spoils of an exploited world, captured most powerfully in the protocols of the Elders of Zion. But it isn't only Jews who suffer from the suggestion that merit and excellence are dirty words. It is strivers of every race, every ethnicity, and every class. That is why Asian American success, for example, is so suspicious. The percentages are off. The scores are too high. Where did you steal all of that success from?
Okay. That is a cogent, coherent argument. We talked about this the first time we had Matt Taibbi on. He did some great coverage of Loudoun County. It was a county in Virginia that normally votes overwhelmingly Democratic, and it was key to the victory of Glenn Youngkin. And while the press portrayed this as, this is a white supremacist uprising, really in Loudoun County, it was a lot of Asian people who had moved there for the public schools, did not like the introduction of DEI and anti-racist programs into the school. And they wound up voting for Youngkin, who promised to get rid of that. That I do not disagree with. It has absolutely nothing to do with supporting Israel. This is what's so dishonest about this video. She's connecting an idea that a lot of people agree with, and she's trying to slip Zionism in with the program.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say to that is on the point of, because she takes issue with the fact that, or her theory that DEI is this attack on meritocracy and makes people, suspicious of those who are successful. First of all, I do think that, success within these systems is suspect. I do think it is suspect. I think that's always something that I don't place a whole lot of import on those ideas. But I would also say, more importantly than that, and that's why, that's just a feeling I have. I couldn't really, draft a whole thesis on that. But what I would say overall, what at the core of her premise, the thing that I take issue with at the core of what she's saying is the premise that DEI exists to make the world a more equal place. DEI does not exist to make the world a more equal place. She seems to resent this goal of equality of results versus equality of opportunity. That's not what DEI is there for. DEI is there to diversify the ruling class. That's what it's there for. Yep. And it is there to put a liberal veneer on the brutalities of the current economic system. You can test a system by the results it creates. How long have we had DEI for in its current form? What, a couple decades, right? I mean, there's always been some
full force about 10 years.
Yeah, there's always been some strain of that, but full force, okay, fine, about 10 years. Has this country gotten more or less unequal in those past 10 years? Yep. Homelessness is at a record high. Okay, homelessness is at a record high this year. Income and wealth disparities are growing, not shrinking. And DEI, especially at these institutions like Harvard, UPenn, MIT, is to placate people by saying, hey, look at how diverse all these rich people are. That must mean it's possible in America for everybody to be able to do whatever they want.
Look at Oprah.
And therefore, your success is your own and is not to be questioned, right? That's why I say I do question people's success within the system. Because where there's smoke, there's fire. It is a rotten system. And those who ascend within it usually do so by subjecting themselves to the injustices that are inherent in a lot of these systems. Now, I'm not saying that is a personal indictment of each individual person. I know that's where she's kind of coming from. But broadly speaking, DEI does not exist to create a certain Marxism that she fearmongers about. I don't know if you pulled that part in the video. But that's not the point of that. DEI serves capitalism. If it didn't serve capitalism, it wouldn't be at fucking Harvard, obviously. This is a point I make over and over again. You really think Harvard University, the second wealthiest institution on earth, second only to the Catholic Church, you really think they are going to adopt a systemic program that threatens capitalism? Of course not. DEI does no such thing.
Right. That's one of the areas that people who take this line go off the beam. She doesn't exactly call it Marxism. She lists different names that it goes by, and one of them
is what? Identity Marxism.
Identity Marxism.
No, but her critique of DEI does seem to be that it is communistic or Marxist in nature, which is that it is this top-down attempt to filter out merit and promote victimhood in order to create a society that's just equal. And I don't think it is. I think it's more smoke and mirrors. I think it exists to diversify the ruling sort of core at the top so that everybody else feels like it's possible for them to get there. And therefore, it's through their own failings that they have not gotten there.
I think that's a dimension, something that Catherine Liu gets into in Virtue Hoarders, who a lot of you saw Jimmy's great interview with her. She gets into this, and we've talked about this. A lot of the purpose of it on the working class level is to keep people fighting across racial lines. It's to divide the working class, because if your interests are all tied to your identity rather than to your class, well, then if this person gets something, they're taking something away from you. It's really a weapon against class solidarity in a lot of respects. You're right. At the level that she's talking about at Harvard, that's how it functions, to diversify the ruling class.
Ruling class, yeah.
At the worker level, it functions to divide the workers.
Yeah, to sow division among the ranks, right. Well, that's where the Robin DiAngelos and them come in. All right, we got more video.
The dangers of DEI have been made exceptionally clear by what's been happening on college campuses today. Campuses where professors are compelled to pledge fidelity to DEI in order to get hired, promoted, or tenured. Campuses where ever since October 7th, we've seen students and professors immersed not in facts, knowledge, or history, but in a dehumanizing ideology that has led them to celebrate or justify terrorism simply because the terrorists are what they call the oppressed and the victims are what they call, quote, white settler colonialists.
Okay, so now that is it in a nutshell. That is, hang on, where is it? I was going to take it down.
It's there. It's just a black screen.
Ah, right. Okay, because you put it in. So that really sums up the dishonest Frankenstein job she's doing with these two different things. She's not wrong. I know people in academia who have been forced to sign pledges like that. I mean, from people I've talked to who are in that world, you've got to pledge that to even get the interview. Like, you've got to say that they'll ask you questions. What are you doing? What are you going to do if we hire you to support diversity, equity, inclusion? How are you going to fight to bring marginalized people? So she's not wrong about that. But then she takes that, which many people have an issue with, myself included, and she connects it to people being for Palestine. That doesn't mean you're for terrorists. That doesn't mean you're for terrorism. And this is it. I mean, this is almost a caricature of the argument that you hear from Zionists, right? You support Palestine, you're supporting Hamas. But she's making this all one thing. Well, because these people have to sign what I would consider these batshit crazy agreements to get a job in academia today. Well, that's why they're against genocide. It's just a crazy, crazy thing to argue.
Yeah, no, indeed. We can go ahead. We can play more.
Now, the antidote to this poison is not for the Jewish community to plead its cause before the intersectional coalition and to beg for higher ranking in the new ladder of victimhood. It's not to assign Jews protected status along other side minorities, because the solution to discrimination isn't more discrimination. That is always a losing strategy.
Okay, so that is something that we've actually argued on the show. That it seems like some Zionists are making that argument. Well, why not us too? You protect trans people, you protect the LGBTQ community. Why aren't you protect brown people? Why aren't we a protected class? Which clearly the part of this, as you say, they just don't really have that kind of self-awareness. The part of that they don't get is anybody who does subscribe to those ideas are going to see the Palestinians as the victim, something that Barry Weiss and people like her categorically reject.
Well, this is part of the conflation of Zionism and Judaism, right? People are not, when people attack Israel, when people criticize Israel, they are not attacking Jews as a group.
Right.
Right?
I do appreciate that she made that point. Hey, the answer is not to make Jews a protected class. It's to get rid of all this. I've said that. I said that from pretty early on. But she doesn't end there.
And in any case, Jewish identity doesn't fit into this very crude racial framework. Because is Judaism a race? If so, what color? Is it a religion, an ethnicity, a culture? See, Jews are by their very existence an affront to this black and white ideology.
Okay, so Barry, you kind of fucked up your own argument here. Okay, so you're arguing rightly that Judaism is a very vague category. What does it mean? Is it a religion? Is it a culture? Is it an ethnicity? But from what I understand, the whole Zionist project is predicated on the idea that there's some kind of a right to that land based on Jews having been there a couple of thousand years ago, but you're conceding now that you don't even really know what a Jew is. So what is that right based on? Who are these Jews that were there 2,000 years ago? Are these people there today in any way related to those Jews? Why are they in Israel if you don't know what Jews are?
Well, also, here, let's let this play out because we only got a few more seconds.
No, the right solution isn't to retrench DEI, only this time including Jews. The only solution is to dismantle the DEI regime that has enforced an illiberal worldview at nearly every American university.
You know what? You're right. You're right. But that would also mean not interfering with the freedom of speech of pro-Palestine protesters or pro-Zionist protesters. Let the chips fall where they may. Why do you think dismantling DEI means an end to people chanting from the river to the sea, which we pulled this slide, which Ms. Weiss might be interested to read. James Zogby just tweeted this out, I think. On the river to the sea controversy, 7 years ago, we polled Israelis and Palestinians. A strong plurality in both favored one state. When asked how that would look, Israelis said it meant expelling all Palestinians. Palestinians said it meant equal rights in one state. Just saying. So Barry, if your issue is really genocidal rhetoric, it looks like when the Israelis talk about a one-state solution, their intentions are genocidal, whereas the Palestinian vision is democratic. So, hey, I mean, maybe you're just pointing this all in the wrong direction. Maybe we should be stopping pro-Israel protesters from speaking if your concern is genocidal intent.
Yeah, and I would just say where Jews fall on the victimhood hierarchy is ultimately neither here nor there, since it is not Jews who are being attacked in these protests. It is a state and a government that is killing 1,000 children a week. That's what's being criticized. So where Jews fall in the hierarchy is neither here nor there. It's irrelevant. It's a red herring. Right? Well, why don't Jews get the same protections that other minority groups do? If whatever. If Benjamin Netanyahu were trans, I think that the protesters would still be protesting what he's doing, right? It's not that he doesn't belong to a protected group, right? It's that they're killing 1,000 children.
It would depend on how fabulous he was.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, but I mean, look, it's a serious point. Like, they would be protesting that no matter what. It's an action. They are protesting an action.
Sure.
They're not protesting against a race or a religious sect of people. There's actually an event going on right now, a horrific event going on right now, and that's what people are protesting. That's what people are upset about.
Well, that's what's
and
so
so to
crazy.
reduce all of that to just, well, this is just hatred and resentment towards a group. Again, that just brings me back to what I said earlier, which is that she just acts as if the objective truth is that Israel is in the right. There is no questioning of that. She doesn't mention anything about what's actually happening in this video. It's all about, well, how is DEI trying to restructure society, right? It's all very theoretical, very academic, not addressing at all the actual events in question, the actual events being protested.
Well, that's what's so dishonest about it. And that's why I felt it is important to look at, because for the reasons that we both stated, both at the upper class level and the lower class level, I do think DEI is extremely dangerous. I do think that DEI should be dismantled. I do think we need to defeat that as an approach to equality and a fairer society. I think it does not create that. And as you say, and as I say, it was not designed for that. It would never be in these institutions if it were actually going to accomplish what it claims to accomplish. So to have somebody take that battle, which is one that I believe in, and argue, if you believe in that battle, then you must support the genocide of the Palestinian people. It's disgusting, it's dishonest, and it's something that has to be nipped in the bud, because the cause of dismantling DEI, that's a pretty popular cause. You do not want people like Barry Weiss to conflate that in the mind of people who have what I feel is a justified anger about a lot of the excesses and irrationality of that movement, to think, well, I'm against that, so I'm for Israel, which is clearly what she's trying to do. And a lot of people like her trying to do that. She's not. Douglas Murray is a good example.
Yeah, indeed. All right, let's take some Rumble rants and super chats before we wrap up. Warren Westell lives on. Thanks for the $2.
Hey, man.
The problem was Jimmy wasn't prepared with a melanated person on tap to give pushback, which put Jimmy in the unenviable position of acting as a white apologist. I don't think he acted as a white apologist. I think he gave him quite a bit of pushback there. And he clearly was not prepared for the conversation to take that turn. He said so himself. So, I mean, like I said, that's a situation I'd have probably just figured out a diplomatic way to end that early. But he let him go.
No, my man Keaton. I mean, from what you're describing, I didn't see it myself. Keaton would have wrapped it up as soon as it went sideways.
What you're really revealing is the Israelis are being brainwashed as heavily as the Americans. Yeah, indeed. Thank you, Warren. Sure. If Israeli occupation forces, CFCU, thanks for the $5. If Israeli occupational force loses over 2K in Gaza, then I feel horrible for them. We all know that one Israeli life is worth, at least 10,000 other human lives, as the Israelis are, in fact, the victims. Yes, thank you, CFCU. Got what you were doing there. McDougal, thanks for the $2. The last time the Democrats took someone off the ballot was in 1860. They would not allow a man named Abraham Lincoln to be so much as mentioned in the slave states. DJT. Did he say that? Was that a quote of his? Thank you, McDougal. Oh, McDougal's over on Rumble now. Future Primitive, thank you for the $2. Can you explain how Jimmy's guest was racist? He was talking about how he was denied work because of his race. I'm seeing tons of racism towards whites and don't think frustration with that makes you racist. You can go and watch it for yourself if it comes out, if that clip comes out. That's all I'll say about that.
I haven't seen it. I can't.
Russell can't say anything. Yeah, there were things that he said that were just over the line, way over the line, I thought. And you could tell by the look of Jimmy's face that he was really, blindsided.
We're not from the hypersensitive part of town, so I trust my esteemed colleague's judgment on
I told you one of the things he said before. We won't repeat that. But yeah, that's fucking
over
the line
to me.
What's that?
Sounded over the line to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's over the line. It's one thing to make your case. It's another thing to be gratuitously hostile in that way. And that's what I thought he was. Zionist exceptionalism is a derivative of American exceptionalism. Summed up means 2 + 2 = whatever the F we say it equals. And we reserve the right to change our positions from moment to moment. Indeed. CFCU, Palestinians are the most Semitic group of people present in the world today. Most Israelis are to Semitism as orange soda is to orange juice. Zionism is anti-Semitic.
You know, I've wanted to dig into that. I haven't because I don't want to get sidetracked into an argument about bloodlines because it's almost beside the point. But I did see Noam Chomsky mention that the Palestinians living in that region are more likely to be descended from the biblical Jews than the Ashkenazis who moved in there.
Yes. Quintessential. Thanks for the 25, whatever those are. During visit to NYC, just as bird watchers go to Central Park, please lead the Cowbell Brunch Liberal watching tour. Yeah. I don't know which neighborhood you'd take them for that, actually, at this point.
Park Slope.
Yeah, I guess Park Slope. I guess you're right. Yeah. Underhill, thanks for the $5. Super happy fun time forever. 9001 2.0 beta extra double fun added for last time. That is extra fun time with Suntime unicorns. Happy Land peoples. Wow.
Okay then.
Really made the most out of that. That's good. Thank you. Brent Yoendo, thanks for the $20. My favorite boys. My favorite channel. Thank you. I'm bigger and stronger for tuning in. Thank you. Have you guys ever looked into Layla Khaled, first female plane hijacker detonator, never killed peeps? Did it draw attention to Palestine in the 60s? I have not looked at it.
No, never heard of that.
I have not, but thank you for that generous donation. It's very kind of you.
Like the female D.B. Cooper.
Also, favorite Kurosawa film, Gotta Love High and Low, and Yojimbo. I haven't seen enough of his stuff to say I have a favorite. I mean, I saw, obviously, Seven Samurai. That's the only one off the top of my head, come to think of it, that I think I watched.
I saw a movie that he made very late in his career that was really interesting. I can't remember the name of it now, though. But yeah, I mean, like Keaton, I'm not an expert.
Yeah. But thank you for that. Aspen Fallen, thanks for the $5. Every Barry Weiss intro must include her facilitation of Gaza Professor Rafat's murder. If anyone should be canceled, it's murderers. Shame.
Good point.
I still have to look into what she said about him.
Right,
I know she said something about him, and I did not look into that. I should have, actually, before the segment, I confess, but I will look that up because I still haven't looked up what exactly she said. Excuse me. Thank you for the $3 CFCU. To ascend to the top in most organizations usually must be legacy. Yeah. Or you must have no gag reflex. Yeah. Thank you for that. Well, that's another point that we could have gotten into, which is that, you know, a lot of these Ivy League schools have these legacy admissions policies, which they've actually come out and forcefully defended as these DEI programs have gotten put in place.
Well, I did my Marquis du Dobular Wall Street Journal op-ed.
Exactly.
Oh,
What's the deal with that?
I have found that the legacy admissions have plenty of fire under the hood. This fucking professor wrote this. What was that? Wall Street Journal. If you never caught the segment, I would recommend looking up that article. You just wouldn't believe that. You want to talk about no sense of self-awareness. A professor at, I think it was Harvard, wrote an entire op-ed in defense of legacy admissions.
Yeah, I think that was Harvard, right? Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was Harvard. Yeah.
Pretty sure. Aspen Fallen, thanks for the $5. Appreciate it, my friend. Sorry. That's the same one. Zionists are a minority. When it suits them, people see it. Yes, indeed. Matt's retiring. Well, congratulations on your retirement. A Jew, a Muslim, and a Catholic and journalist walk into a hospital. This should be a joke, but unfortunately the IDF blew it up. Oh, along with the doctors, dark humor. Gallows humor. Dark. That's where we bring them out. I guess we pitched this show as a gallows humor show, so we can't complain.
No,
Barry has a very punchable face, BB Toady. Thank you, Aspen Fallen. We do not encourage violence against anybody.
Listen, I really wanted to take on those arguments because it's something that we hear a lot of these days. But I really wanted to take a clip from her Heritage Foundation thing. Go look that up. If you want to see who Barry Weiss is, she went up in front of the Heritage Foundation, said, in the end, we're all the same. We all want to pay lower taxes, right?
Yeah.
Now, I know a lot of you don't think my marriage should exist. I'm not fucking around. She said this. I know you think my marriage should not exist because she's a gay woman. But you are my true allies. I am not kidding. She said this. Go look it up. It's a Heritage Foundation speech she gave recently.
Yep. Warren Westell lives on. This is the chick that failed on Rogan's podcast, right? Yeah, with the Tulsi thing.
Yeah, Tulsi.
She's horrible. How?
Why?
Yeah. Warren Westell, so she's ready to dismantle what Finkelstein called the Holocaust industry, right? Yeah, I'd love to see that debate. That would actually be...
That would be a great debate.
Yeah.
You think she would sit down with Norm?
I don't know.
She might.
Because the thing about Barry Weiss is, she's a hypocrite in a lot of ways and a fraud in a lot of ways, but she's not an untalented debater. Like, she doesn't strike me as an unformidable opponent.
That's why I'm saying she might do it.
Yeah. Blank State, thanks for the $5. Arabs conquered the Levant with violence from French, Greeks, Romans, who conquered the Levant with violence from Jews, who conquered the Levant with violence from Philistines, Canaanites, etc. Thank you, Blank State. Can't remember if Blank State's a patron. Sorry if you are. And I forgot. Moral of the story, religion is always political and is historically used to justify mass slaughter. As St. George put it, it's bad for you. It's bullshit and it's bad for you. It's the name of his last special. Thank you for those. Amadeus, right libs, there you go, deliberately created DEI, and they're blaming it on the left to oppose it from day one. She is truly evil. Goebbels would be proud. I agree with that. Yes, I think it is ultimately a tool of capitalism, and now it gets weaponized against the left because they're able to sort of smear it as this thing where, it's cultural Marxism, right? But really, it's in service of capitalism. Good point. Very succinctly put. Put it better than I did, as a matter of fact. I should read your super chat and cut that into the segment.
Look, I don't know anybody who's into that shit who is not like a fucking devout, dyed-in-the-wool PMC.
Yeah, no, it's a PMC thing. Of course. If Kamala and Shapiro had a child, enter Barry Weiss. Thanks, Matt's retiring. Appreciate that. KDK7, can do dissidents do a future segment on that Jimmy interview? I'm not really interested. First of all, I don't know if that's going to be a segment.
I would be shocked if that, from what you're describing, I would be shocked if that drops as a clip.
He literally said, I didn't know this is where you were going to take this. We're going to get in trouble for even talking about this. Like, I would be shocked if that even drops, because that was clearly not what the interview was designed to be in the first place. Okay, thank you for those. Long story short, have you guys ever seen Corey Schuster's Ask Project? I have not. Have you?
I haven't. Nope.
I have not. Sorry, my friend. Can you review the film Huda Salon? It's Palestinian. What was the Palestinian film that came out a while ago? There was one that really made a big splash. It was not a documentary. It was a narrative film. I forget what it was. Why am I not remembering it? God, it's pissing me off now. All right, I'll look it up.
I wrote it down.
As soon as we're done, I got to look that up. There was a Palestinian film. Do you guys know in the chat? It was like a big one. I think it was nominated for an Oscar for foreign film. If anybody in the chat knows what it is, I will probably remember it if you guys can post it there. So bombing refugee camps is now woke. Yeah, thank you, Dad of the Outback. Appreciate that. Jewel in the Machine, the app No Thanks gives you all the BDS info on products. Yeah, I saw that. Scan and enter brand. I saw some social media videos on that. Jewel in the Machine, thank you.
I sometimes I post these on X, but I swear to God, every time I go in my supermarket ever since October 7th, They cannot get rid of Sabra brand hummus. They're always given a 2-for-1 deal or a club card discount. Like it's never just on. They're never just selling it. Like they have to push it on people. Nobody's buying it.
Look at Jake, our producer. Jake says he posted Blank State's answer. I'm not a patron because I'm afraid of commitments, but maybe one of these days. Okay. Well, thank you, Jake, for fielding that. How good is Jake for fielding that? Give another round of applause for Jake in the chat here. But Blank State says, P.S. If your God allows you to get brutally murdered in place of worship, your God sucks. Sorry, not sorry. Religion is toxic and akin to the mental illness most religious folk accuse others of. Thank you, Blank State.
I did not know Bill Maher watches the show.
Yeah, I didn't know Bill Maher was a fan of the show.
Who knew?
Weiss said heritage is proof that liberals and conservatives are the exact same thing, just spelled differently. Yep.
Yeah,
good
you
point.
got that right.
Barry Weiss is smugnerant, says Cool Blue 71. Thank you very much. All righty, folks. That's all we got for tonight. Thank you very much for being here. We will see you all again on Friday morning at 9 a.m. So not too far away. I will hopefully have ditched this cold by then and hopefully have seen Godzilla tomorrow. I have to see how things are looking tomorrow.
The person says the movie was The Present.
The Present. No, that doesn't sound familiar. Maybe I'm thinking of another one. But thank you for that, though. Appreciate that. And Jake says, we got one more rant. Gentlemen, thank you for your service. Stay strong. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all very much for being here tonight. You guys were a great audience, great chat as always. Appreciate you. We will see you back here Friday morning at 9 a.m. In the meantime, we had a couple people hit us up on Patreon throughout the course of this show, so we are now within 5 of that goal. So if you go to patreon.com/DoDissidence, you can get us over that 500 hump by the end of the year. We will schedule in our 4th weekly stream. Wow, talk about being afraid of commitments. That's going to be something. But patreon.com/DoDissidence.
Because we're doing that one over the wall, right?
Well, sometimes depends on if there's stuff going on.
Depends on what this.
That's another thing. So we'll announce that more formally as as we start integrating those streams. But join our Substack, even if you guys cannot join as a paid member. Joining our Substack gives you access to our newsletter, which alerts you to when and where we're going to be live. So part of the reason why we want to add a 4th stream is so we can start covering stuff that we're not really supposed to cover here on YouTube here in East Berlin. And so there will be some streams moving forward. When we add 4 streams a week, we will pretty regularly be either splitting the streams, half YouTube, half Rumble, or sometimes a stream will just be a Rumble stream. It won't even appear on YouTube at all. Right. The way you're going to find out where we are is by joining our Substack, DoDissidence.substack.com. We will always send an email out a few hours in advance at least, almost always 5 or 6 hours in advance at least, telling you when and where we're going to be live. So if it's a Rumble exclusive stream, you will know if you join that Substack. It's super important that you're on that Substack. Follow us on Twitter as well at DoDissidence. We'll always post there in advance of our streams. But there's no guarantee you'll see a tweet just because you follow us. If you join the Substack, even as a free member, you will guaranteed get an email telling you when and on what platform we will be live. And that's going to be especially important once we add a 4th stream a week, since we're going to do some uncensored content over on Rumble. So it's important that you know where we're at and when.
And my next article is dropping on Substack tomorrow. So run over and sign up now if you're not already there.
Indeed. AJQN1 9/11/16/10/7 orchestrated with intel. Critical thinking and reflection is not conspiracy. These dates are scapegoated and a reason to fund and influence policy to take away our temp. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Our temp jobs.
Our temp jobs. Yeah, exactly. Thank you guys all very much. We will see you back here Friday morning. Until then, be safe. Be well. Thank you once again for tonight.
Courage.
Please clap.